Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Pirate. After punching the redhead, I went crazy. Chapter 21. Ever since he copied the ability of the red-haired Shanks, Lu Ang, who has top-level swordsmanship, has never had a good sword, which is really helpless. It's like a top chef who has cooking skills but no kitchen utensils. He can only sigh in excitement at the food. Shanya looked puzzled and asked, "Do you know how to use a sword?" Although he had seen Lu Ang take action before, he had never shown much of his sword skills at this moment. So after hearing Lu Ang's words, I felt a little curious. Lu Ang glanced at Shanya and said with a faint smile, "Of course, only a few 100 million. A little bit." With full of doubts, Shanya shook his head and followed Lu Ang. "Ha, he's more than a little." Shinolin's face was full of smiles. She held her hands behind her back and jumped up and down like a little girl, following closely behind. She has witnessed Lu Ang's strength countless times. Although Lu Ang rarely showed his ability in swordsmanship, through Lu Ang's many attacks, Shinolin felt more and more unfathomable about him. Therefore, even if Lu Ang said he only knew a little bit, she believed that his attainments in swordsmanship were absolutely terrifying. Because Lu Ang ran away from the Buggy Pirates, everyone in Orangetown was extremely enthusiastic about him, and people kept saying hello to him along the way. "Resident. Sir Hero, come and have some seafood buns." Lu Ang. No, I've just eaten." Resident. "Brother Hero, I have a 28-year-old wine here. Would you like to take a sip?" Lu Ang. "No, thank you for your kindness. I can't drink it now, I can't drink it." Resident. "Hero, I am a newly released cuckold who is very fashionable and handsome. Come and give it a try." Lu Ang. "Ahem, forget about this hat. I don't have the habit of being a cuckold. Thank you. I sincerely thank you." Seeing Lu Ang being embarrassed by various greetings, Shinolin couldn't help but feel funny. This captain, who is not afraid of the sky or the earth, actually has a weakness of social fear. If I tell anyone, I'm afraid a lot of people will laugh to death. After walking around for a while and finally surviving a wave of enthusiastic attacks, Lu Ang finally found a weapons store with a sword crossing sign. "Ha, finally found it." With a proud smile, Lu Ang crossed the street with anticipation and ran towards the weapons store opposite. This guy. Seeing Lu Ang's eyes shining with the same expression as a hungry person seeing food, Shanya couldn't help but look puzzled. Is this guy a swordsman? Otherwise, why would you care so much about weapons? Don't be stunned, let's go over and take a look. Shinolin smiled and pulled Shanya to follow quickly as he spoke. After entering the weapons store, Lu Ang immediately felt a very unusual aura. The three walls of this weapon shop are covered with countless swords, but that's not important. What really concerned Lu Ang was that the shop owner was actually a guy wearing a black robe, a coat and a hat, with his face covered and only one eye exposed. He sat behind a glass counter in the back, crossed his hands, and looked deeply at Lu Ang who walked in. "Sir, do you want to buy weapons?" The shop owner's voice was hoarse, like the crow of a crow, which made people feel creepy. Hearing this voice, Shinolin on the side couldn't help but get goosebumps all over his body. She walked to Lu Ang and whispered, or we should go to another house." Lu Ang patted Shinolin's shoulder lightly and said with a smile, "It's okay, we're all here, let's take a look." The keen Shanya also noticed something was wrong. He stared at the shop owner with a wary look on his face. This guy is not simple. Although it was just one eye, Shanya could feel a great sense of oppression faintly radiating from the other party's body. Lu Ang could naturally feel that there was something strange about this old man-like shop owner, but this did not prevent him from buying a good weapon at all. He glanced at the shop owner, nodded and smiled. "Of course, I want to buy a good sword, but I don't know if you have the magic weapon I want here." As Lu Ang spoke, he picked up the weapons and observed them one by one. Hearing this, the shop owner suddenly grinned and said, "Hey, don't worry, I have all the best magic weapons here. Many famous swordsmen will come to buy from me. You will never be disappointed." Lu Ang picked up every sword and every knife from left to right, from top to bottom. Pull out, close again, pull out and close again. After looking at them for a long time, I still couldn't find the style I wanted. He shook his head and said, "Average, really average." The shop owner's expression paused for a moment, then he said, "Hey, how about that? The swords here are all made through hard work. Lu Ang glanced sideways at the shop owner, and then took out the sword in his hand. He said to this guy, thousands of times of hard work. Stop talking nonsense. I look at this sword in my hand. As long as I break it gently, I guess it will be better. They can all be broken off. The shop owner chuckled and said, hey, your guest is really good at joking, so you can give it a try and break it off. Count me. Ah. Almost the moment he said the word, the sword in front of him made a clanging sound and was broken by Lu Ang. Lu Ang looked at the half of the sword in his left hand and shrugged, looking helpless. I shouldn't have to pay for this, right? You just said it's yours. Shop owner. At this moment, the shop owner who originally regarded Lu Ang as a fool finally changed his face. He looked at Lu Ang solemnly and said, armed and entangled, you are not simple. Lu Ang was not surprised at all when he directly told the store owner the power he had just used. From the moment he walked in, he felt the unusual aura of this boss. That is the perception of the strong. Although this guy may not necessarily be so powerful, Lu Ang can still detect the difference between him and ordinary people. Lu Ang smiled and said, since you know that I am not simple, you should understand that I am not that easy to fool. The shop owner nodded. I understand, but I don't have the magic weapon you want. Having said this, he paused, stared at Lu Ang with a strange expression, and continued, there is an evil weapon sword, but I don't know if you dare to buy it. Lu Ang's eyes were strange. Oh. What kind of evil weapon and magic sword? Can you take it out and let me see it? Hey, of course, please wait a moment. The shop owner let out a creepy chuckle, then turned around and opened a secret door hidden behind him, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Not long after, the shop owner reopened the secret door and returned here. At this time, he already had a dark sword box in his hand. This sword box looks dark, but if you look closely, you will find countless strange lines on it. Others might not be able to see the pattern, but Lu Ang could see it at a glance. What kind of pattern is this? It's clearly a talisman font. Obviously, the sword box with the talisman font is not only a thing to store the objects inside, but also a treasure used to seal it. At this moment, Shanya suddenly said, be careful, this sword box looks very weird. Lu Ang naturally knew that there was something wrong with the sword box, but since his opponent dared to take it out, he should have the courage to accept it. Now he is a man with the strongest domineering power, top physical skills and extraordinary swordsmanship. If you are afraid of a sword, why don't you just go home and coax your children? It's okay, it's just a sword, I haven't taken it seriously yet. Lu Ang said casually while reaching out his hand to touch the sword box. Just when he was about to touch him, the shop owner suddenly laughed and said, young man, seeing how courageous you are, I will give you a piece of advice. Lu Ang glanced at the shop owner. Oh, what advice? Shop owner. As you can see, this sword is not an extraordinary thing. Its real name is second generation Kitetsu. It is one of the only 21 great swords left in the world. However, this sword is also called the demon sword. There will be extremely terrible unknown consequences. If you want it, you'd better be mentally prepared. Second generation Kitetsu. Lu Ang was stunned for a moment, then looked at the store owner, and suddenly understood the identity of the guy in front of him. Is it to avoid being chased? The shop owner nodded and said, yes, second generation Kitetsu, this knife is extremely ghastly and terrifying. It is a demon's knife. If your destiny is not strong enough, it is better not to wear it, otherwise it will bring you unpredictable consequences. A tough life. Ha ha ha, in this world of One Piece, who else can be tougher than me? Lu Ang laughed, and then picked up the sword box without saying anything. After hearing the store owner's introduction, Shinolin on the side became anxious and rushed forward immediately. Wait a minute, that's a demon sword. It will bring bad luck. Put it down quickly. Shanya bit the grass stem, folded his arms, nodded in rare agreement, and agreed, yes, I have heard of this knife, it is indeed quite evil. Lu Ang grinned. Don't worry, there is nothing in this world that I can't tame. Even a mere sword can't tame it, so I'll be a hammer. After saying this, Lu Ang opened the sword box without saying a word. The moment the sword box was opened, an extremely terrifying evil spirit suddenly shot up into the sky. Shinolin and Shanya were shocked by this terrifying evil spirit and took more than 10 steps back, staggering all the way back to the door of the store. The shop owner looked at Luang in shock, with disbelief on his face. This guy is not affected. Luang, who has copied the red-haired ability, possesses the Supreme Conqueror's domineering power and already possesses extremely strong will and belief. Although second-generation Kitetsu is extremely terrifying, he is still nothing to Luang, who possesses Conqueror's haki. Looking at the demonic sword in front of him and feeling the bloodthirsty aura, Luang smiled slightly, then reached out and grabbed it without hesitation. In the eyes of everyone, he suddenly drew out the hilt of his sword. In an instant, an extremely cold light flashed past, like the gaze of a demon, exuding an extremely sharp and scary aura. Luang exclaimed, "It is indeed a good knife." At this time, the shop owner suddenly grinned and said, "Hey, you can't use its power like this." Luang's eyes widened. "Oh, how can I show it to you?" The shop owner pointed at Luang's hand and said, "Use your domineering energy to wrap it around it. As long as your domineering energy can withstand its devouring, you can increase its power several times or even dozens of times." Luang glanced at the shop owner, and his sharp, sword-like eyes made his scalp tingle, and he immediately backed away. The shop owner was sweating violently, swallowed his saliva, and said with a look of horror on his face, What are you going to do?" Luang said lightly, "It's nothing, I just want to tell you, it's best not to plot against me, otherwise I will let you sink into the sea with this weapons shop." "Ha, distinguished guest, you really love to joke, how dare I?" The shop owner wiped away the sweat that was constantly pouring out, then gritted his teeth and said, "Well, I just forgot to mention that in addition to being domineering, this knife is also bloodthirsty, so you'd better use the armed color first. Domineering protects your whole body, so that you will not be injured, because this demon sword not only thirsts for the blood of the enemy, but also the blood of its owner. Then, if you feel that your domineering is not enough, it is recommended that you choose to give up, otherwise this sword it will completely drain your energy and spirit, and eventually you will become a soulless walking corpse." After hearing this, Luang regained his murderous intention slightly. He just felt that this guy was dishonest, and he still hid something. "If I hadn't been prepared for this and just covered my head and did it, I'm afraid I would have been injured at this moment. Although he won't be sucked dry, it is very likely that he will fall into the trap of the demon sword." Shinolin stood in the distance and trembled and said, "How about giving up? This knife can actually suck blood. It is simply the weapon of the devil. It's too scary." Shanya looked solemn and said nothing. Apparently he was also shocked by the knife. "Don't worry, if I can't defeat you even with this knife, then I don't have to go to sea. There are many scarier things in this world than this thing." Luang grinned, then his eyes narrowed, and his armed and domineering aura instantly covered his body. After confirming that every corner of his body was covered, he slowly attached his domineering energy from the handle to the blade. When second-generation Kitetsu touched haki, his entire sword began to tremble crazily uncontrollably. Just like a hungry jackal encountering delicious food, he started to devour it without restraint. In the blink of an eye, Luang's arms began to deflate at a speed visible to the naked eye. Luang snorted coldly and transmitted his domineering energy again. But not long after, the demon sword continued to devour them all. Just like this, once, twice, 3 times. After swallowing the domineering force 12 times, the shop owner's eyes almost burst out. Is this guy a monster? He can actually withstand being devoured by the demon sword 12 times in a row. The store owner obviously underestimated Luang's domineering power. As the top domineering person in the sea, he already possesses a massive amount of domineering power. Although the demon sword is strong, it can never be stronger than the sea overlord. After devouring it 12 times in a row, the demon sword finally felt the unfathomable power of this new master. Just when it was considering whether to devour it for the 13th time, Luang's voice sounded. "What, are you scared? Since you are scared, let's spit out Lousy's domineering attitude." With this roar, Luang released his conqueror's domineering energy towards the demon sword without hesitation. After being devoured 12 times in a row, he had already suppressed his anger. When he saw the demon sword hesitated, he immediately burst out unceremoniously. Accompanied by this shocking roar, the entire weapons store shook crazily, and at the same time, the demon sword also trembled slightly. Obviously, it also felt the domineering and terrifying new owner. The next second, second-generation Kuche suddenly spit out his domineering energy and began to continuously send it back to Luang's body. When the domineering spirit was completely withdrawn and Luang held the demon's sword again, he felt like he was connected by blood. It was as if what he was holding at this moment was not a knife, but one of his own hands. This mysterious feeling was his first time to experience it. He waved lightly towards the ground casually, and an extremely sharp sword energy burst out immediately, splitting the entire weapons store in half in an instant. Looking at the collapsed weapons store, Luang couldn't help but be slightly startled. Isn't this sword energy so awesome? He didn't even use his sword skills just now, just a casual swing. A good knife, indeed a good knife. Looking at this demonic sword that had lost its hostility, Luang couldn't help but admire it. Now, he can feel that he doesn't even need to use swordsmanship. Just a casual wave was enough to instantly kill the king of the offshore sea he encountered. Shinolin was stunned and his face was dull. Good, terrible sword energy. Shanya was also stunned at this moment, with disbelief in his eyes. At the same time, the shop owner's eyes trembled and he was stunned. He never expected that Luang could actually subdue this demonic sword. At this moment, this minute, this second, the excitement in his heart was indescribable. I didn't expect that I would be able to witness the grace of a supreme swordsman subduing the demon sword again in my life. Even if I die in this life, it's worth it. Suddenly, the shop owner knelt down with a plop. Sir, the supreme swordsman, I was rude just now. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I thought this guy was going to yell at me, and even Luang was mentally prepared to spend a huge sum of money to compensate. But he never expected that instead of scolding him, the shop owner knelt down and worshipped him. Could this guy be so angry that he became stupid because I surrendered the demon sword and hacked his store? Luang touched his chin, and finally shook his head and chose to help the shop owner. No matter what, you should not take advantage of others' danger. You should compensate those who should be compensated. This is a matter of principle. After all, he is not a robber or a bandit. This kind of plundering style does not fit with his personality. Ahem, get up quickly. People will think I'm threatening you if you act like this. It won't be fun if you attract Marine later. Hearing this, the shop owner couldn't help but be surprised and said, "Ah. What kind of threat? You are a great swordsman. How can you threaten others? It's impossible, absolutely impossible." Luang's old face turned a little red when the shop owner called him Sword Master on the left and Sword Master on the right. Although his strength is indeed comparable to that of a great swordsman, after all, he is copied from him, so he still feels a little guilty when being called that. Looking at the fallen weapons on the ground, Luang said with some embarrassment, "Well, I accidentally destroyed your store. Look how much this store is worth. I'll pay you double the compensation." Quote. What? After hearing this, the store owner immediately stopped working. You are the supreme swordsman. It's my honor for you to come to me to buy weapons. I'm grateful before it's too late. How can I accept your money? No, 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 I don't want it. I absolutely can't take it. The shop owner said this while waving his hands wildly, refusing to take it life or death. But after the shop owner finally said it, Luang still made up his mind to give him the money he deserved. He walked to Shanya and whispered, "Bring me all the baileys you put in the cabin for me. I want to compensate the shop owner." Shanya glanced at Luang with a strange look in his eyes. Unexpectedly, he didn't refute a word, but nodded and ran out without saying a word. To be kind is the family education philosophy of the older generation towards Luang. Although he came to the world of One Piece, which is completely different from the real world, Luang is still Luang. His character and principles will still not change easily. Even if the store owner doesn't want money, he can't just take advantage and walk away. That would be so inhumane. Not long after, Shanya ran back with a big box. Luang took the box and opened it. There were 40 million baileys cash neatly placed inside. He counted them once, and after confirming that they were correct, he brought them to the store owner. These are all my belongings. I bought the demon sword and compensated your store. Although it is not much, please be sure to accept it. While talking, Luang placed the box in front of the shop owner, then turned around and left. He knew that this guy would probably refuse, so it was better to leave as soon as possible. He didn't like pushing and shoving. Wait a minute, the supreme swordsman. After walking a few steps, the shop owner suddenly stopped Luang. Luang did not answer, but ran faster. Seeing no one running away in the distance, the shop owner couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Sure enough, anyone who can become a supreme swordsman is not a narrow-minded person. Looking at the box in his hand, the store owner was moved and helpless. He took the box and stood up slowly. Looking at the collapsed shop in front of him and the weapons scattered on the floor, he shook his head. It seems that I have to spend another time. At this moment, several tall figures suddenly came behind the store owner. Seeing the huge figure suddenly appearing from behind, the shop owner looked back in surprise. Then, a swift and sharp fist suddenly hit. At the same time, Luang, who got the second-generation ghost cheer, was in a good mood, and he felt like he was walking with wind. Haha, I didn't expect that this time when I came here, I could get such a top-quality weapon. It's worth it. It's really worth it. Luang couldn't put it down and looked at the demon sword in his hand, taking it out from time to time to look at it, his eyes full of unconcealable love and admiration. The workmanship of this demon knife can be described in 4 words: exquisite. The lines on it are extremely fine, and the blade is extremely sharp. Just the shining brilliance of the blade brings an intoxicating chill. The reason why the sword box was so cruel and fierce when opening it for the first time was probably because the demonic sword that had been suppressed for a long time burst out in an instant, creating an unbearable ferocious aura. Yamaga chewed the grass stems and looked at second-generation Kache with surprise. I didn't expect you to be able to tame this demon sword. This sentence is not a compliment, but the most honest evaluation given by Shanya. Because the demon sword has been frightening for a long time, and the disasters it brings are also known to everyone. Luang looks ordinary, but he was able to surrender the demon sword the first time he saw it. Obviously Luang is not simple either. After hearing Shanya's words, Luang glanced at him, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and said proudly, "The demon sword is not simple, am I also simple?" Hearing this, Shanya and Shinolan nodded in unison. Shanya, besides eating, just eating. Aren't you just such a simple-minded person? Shinolan, no, sir, he also likes to catch bounty criminals, you should add this. Shanya, oh, then add another one who is greedy for money. Luang, at this moment, Luang really wanted to grab Shanya and beat him up. This guy really had enough. Besides complaining about yourself, what else can you do? Can't you just say something nice once in a while? What does it mean to be simple-minded? It means that you are indifferent to fame and fortune, naive and simple, okay. But thinking about it, he still couldn't do it after all. I have no choice but to rely on others to support my own temple of the 5 internal organs. I can't do it without pampering. Walking on the country road, Luang looked at the mountains in the distance, and suddenly he had an idea and said, "By the way, let's go to the mountains to see if there is any game." Game? Shanya and Shinolan looked at it with doubts on their faces. Luang nodded crazily and said, "Yes, look, there are no wild boar, pheasant or the like. This thing is so delicious when roasted. It's hard to come to the mainland. If you don't experience it everywhere, it would be a shame for this beauty. It's time." Hearing what Luang said, Shinolan couldn't help but get a little excited. She held her little pink fist and said with bright eyes, "It sounds very interesting." Seeing how excited the two of them were, Shanya could only spread his hands and nodded helplessly. Just do what they said, and the 3 of them quickly ran towards the foot of the mountain in the distance without saying a word. At the same time, not long after Luang and the others left the town, a group of vicious-looking fishmen also rushed in. "Ha ha ha, kids, hurry up and gather everyone in the town for me." With a burst of arrogant laughter, countless fishmen rushed towards Orangetown crazily. Oh my god, the pirates are here again. How could this happen? Not only did a wave of pirates leave, but another wave came, and it was the even more notorious dragon pirates. Who will save us? Woohoo, I don't want to die. Where is our hero? If anyone sees it, call him quickly. With all kinds of fear and exclamations, countless residents of Orangetown were threatened by fishmen one by one and came to the port of Orangetown. Seeing everyone crying and howling in front of him, the evil dragon who was a Fishman pirate ship couldn't help laughing. He sat on a huge sofa, with a sharp, jagged nose, and glanced at the trembling residents with a grin on his face. Everyone, don't be nervous, don't be afraid. From now on, this town will be under the jurisdiction of my dragon pirates. As for me, I am also a very reasonable person. I want money, not my life. You adults only need to pay every month. How about 100,000 belly and 50,000 belly for a child, and he can continue to live happily and peacefully? It's very fair. Every month, are you the devil? A man wearing a striped gown and a gentle face suddenly shouted in shock. The evil dragon glanced at the man, stretched out his right hand, a drop of water slowly dripped from the palm, and then swung it out fiercely. Wow! The man let out a scream, and his whole body seemed to be hit by a cannonball, and he flew out in a bloody mess. Seeing the man fall to the ground and lose his breath in a blink of an eye, a woman in a pink dress immediately rushed forward in tears. Husband, woo-woo, don't die. Looking at the woman crying, the evil dragon couldn't help but grin and said, "Hey, does anyone else want to express a different opinion? It's okay, my evil dragon is very talkative, so feel free to express it, ha 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 ha." Seeing the evil dragon's arrogant and lawless appearance, all the people in Orangetown gnashed their teeth in hatred, but there was nothing they could do. The boss of the Fishman Pirates in front of him is obviously more vicious and powerful than the Buggy Pirates. They can't even defeat the Buggy Pirates, so how can they defeat the evil dragon? At this time, the mayor of the town, Budal, said with a face full of dissatisfaction, "Humph, what's your ability to be arrogant to us ordinary people? If you are really capable, just wait for our hero to come back. You are nothing in front of him." After hearing the mayor's words, everyone's eyes lit up, and they raised their hands and started shouting. "Yes, if you have the ability, just wait for our hero to come back. Yes, our hero is a strong man who can kill the Buggy Pirates in one go. He is more than enough to deal with you. If you are really good, you can compete with our hero. If you win, we will give you all the money." Hearing everyone roaring in unison, the evil dragon couldn't help but frown slightly. What kind of hero? Why hasn't Lousy heard of him? He looked at his friend with the long mouth next to him and asked, "Jew, do you know when a hero appeared here?" He pinched his chin and pondered for a long time, then shook his head and said, "Boss, I haven't heard of any heroic guy appearing. Maybe he is a new guy who suddenly appeared. He shouldn't be very famous." Hearing this, the evil dragon couldn't help but smile evilly. "Hey, are you new? That's interesting. If that's the case, then I'll just sit here and wait for a day. If this so-called hero comes back, then I'll have a good time and let these guys feel the terror of my evil dragon." Then the evil dragon glanced at everyone, grinned and said, "Since you are all hoping that the hero can come to save you, then I, the evil dragon, will be merciful once. I will give you 1 day, and you will be saved by me within 1 day. That hero is brought in front of Lousy. As long as he can defeat Lousy, then I will leave here, but..." Speaking of this, the evil dragon suddenly turned gloomy and put on the most ruthless face. "If he can't win, then each of you here will have to pay double the price of your life. This is your punishment." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. If doubled, it means that an adult would have to pay 200,000 belly every month, and a child would have to pay 100,000 belly. For them, this is simply a terrifying huge amount of money. The real Boodle's old face changed drastically, and he immediately said to everyone, "Hurry up, go find the hero immediately, immediately, immediately." Soon, the entire Orangetown began to run away in all directions like crazy. In a dilapidated high-rise building hundreds of meters away, a woman wearing orange shorts and orange hair was shivering and putting away her telescope. This woman is none other than Nami. Aren't these demons staying in Kokoja village? Why are they suddenly attacking Orangetown again? The scene he saw through the telescope made Nami's whole body tremble and his lips turned white. If there is anyone in this world that scares Nami the most, it is definitely the evil dragon. Did he get a clue that I came here? Nami's pink fist trembled slightly, and her whole body was trembling uncontrollably. She really didn't want to be captured back to the Dragon Pirates, where she had to draw countless navigation charts every day. If you don't draw well or make a mistake, you will be beaten and yelled at. She had had enough of those purgatory-like days. No, I absolutely don't want to go back, I must find a way to escape from here. Nami held her head and kept shaking it. At this moment, her mind was filled with the fear and shadow of being dominated by the evil dragon. No, I can't go out now. If I go out now, I will definitely be discovered by those fish men. Nami, who was frightened, tried to maintain some sense of reason. She had just scanned the area with her binoculars and clearly noticed that hundreds of murlocs were searching along the streets and alleys of the town. If she goes out now, she will definitely be caught immediately. By the way, at night, I won't go out until they fall asleep. Just as this thought crossed his mind, Nami suddenly heard a burst of shouting coming from all directions in the town. Master Hero, where are you? Come out quickly and save us. Brother Hero, there are pirates attacking. Are you still in the town? If you are, come out quickly, otherwise we will be dead. Hero, our good hero, if you are here, please reply quickly. Hearing the shouts one after another, Nami's eyes lit up, and she suddenly thought of Luang, who had knocked Buggy down instantly. By the way, this guy is so powerful. He should have no problem dealing with the evil dragon. As long as we find him and let him take action, wouldn't it be enough? Nami slapped her palms, and hope rekindled in her originally despairing heart. Without saying a word, she picked up the telescope and started searching the whole town. At the same time, no one knew that as the savior that everyone in Orange Town longed for, Luang was enjoying delicious barbecue at the foot of a mountain dozens of kilometers away. He, Shanya, and Shinolin were sitting next to a simple barbecue grill set up by branches. Watching the skewered wild boar meat, slowly rolling and grilling under Shanya's careful movements. Looking at the increasingly golden appearance and smelling the refreshing smell of barbecue, Luang couldn't help but lick his lips. Tisk tisk, the smell of pork really makes gods jump over walls. Shinolin looked at Luang with confusion. What do you mean by jumping over the wall? Luang, ahem, it means that this thing is so fragrant and tempting, even if the gods living in the neighborhood smell it, they will excitedly jump over from the other side of the wall. Shinolin nodded. Oh, that's it. Sir, your knowledge is quite profound. Luang couldn't help but blush slightly after hearing this. No, basic operations. Cut. Shanya, who is the god tier of complaints, also lost no time in scorning him at this time. It seems that he will never see Luang's proud look. Luang didn't care much about this either. What's the point of arguing with a little brat? Seeing the wild boar with an increasingly rich and attractive aroma, Luang couldn't help but swallow his saliva again and again. Well, is this thing about to get cooked? Shanya looked solemn and continued to roll without saying a word. When doing things, he always seems to be extremely focused. Before long, the tender and shiny roasted wild boar began to exude a more fragrant flavor. Not only Luang, but also some carnivores from all directions were attracted by this fragrant smell. Shanya. That's it. As Shanya finished speaking, Luang's eyes lit up and he reached out his hand without saying a word. At the same time, a group of drooling wolves rushed over from all directions, howling and howling. Shanya frowned and was about to stand up to take action, but unexpectedly an invisible wave of air suddenly spread from Luang's body. The next second, dozens of wolves instantly turned their eyes white and fell down one by one. Lousy hates being interrupted while eating. While Luang glanced at the group of wolves lying on the ground, he quickly pulled out 2 large pig knuckles from the roasted wild boar. Luang, who took the pork knuckles, did not put them into his mouth, but handed one to Shanya and Shinolin on the other side. Both of them were stunned for a moment. Because the script turned so fast, they obviously didn't expect that Luang, who was so delicious, would give the delicious food to himself first. Be quick. Luang rolled his eyes at the 2 of them angrily, forced it into their hands, and then went to pull the 3rd pig knuckle. He put the fragrant and roasted pork knuckle into his mouth. Open your mouth and bite, and you will bite off a large piece of meat that is fat and thin in balance. It's indeed wild boar meat. It tastes so fragrant, so tender, and so delicious. Luang's eyes flashed with brilliance as he chewed, revealing a look of unspeakable admiration. He swore that this was definitely the best pork he had ever eaten. Fat but not greasy, tender and delicious, you will have endless aftertaste after eating it. Seeing the excitement on Luang's face after eating, Shinolin and Shanya also looked at each other and smiled, and then started eating too. After taking a bite, both of them looked strange. Obviously, the taste of wild boar was also beyond their expectations. Not only is it chewy, but the meat quality is also obviously more delicious and palatable than domestic pork. The two of them, who happened to be a little hungry, joined in the meal without saying a word. In less than 2 hours, the entire wild boar was completely destroyed by the three of them, leaving only piles of large bones. Cool. Lu Ang patted his round belly and let out a satisfied sigh. Shanya and Shinolin were also extremely full and almost couldn't walk. Lu Ang stood up and said to the two of them, "Let's go for a walk by the river and enjoy the cool afternoon breeze. Walk 100 steps after a meal and live to be 99. Based on the concept that walking helps digestion, Lu Ang took his two companions and walked down the mountain leisurely. Following the previously familiar route, after walking for more than an hour, the three of them arrived at a secluded river. This river is not big, about 10 meters wide, but the water is extremely clear. Because the river water is not the village's irrigation water, but a wild river water, relatively speaking, the pollution is not great. After finding a clean piece of grass, Lu Ang lay down directly on it. Blowing the wind from the river and smelling the faint fragrance of grass, he felt that he was about to fall asleep comfortably. Because the wind was so gentle, it was as if a woman's little hands were gently stroking herself, feeling indescribably comfortable and relaxed. Shinolin couldn't help but shook his head when he saw Lu Ang's appearance. This guy seemed to have turned into a child again. When she turned her head to see Shanya's reaction, she found that this guy was also gone. After looking around again, her expression suddenly froze. It turned out that Shanya also ran up the slope by the river at some point. At this time, Shanya's limbs were spread out, showing a figure of 8, his eyes were closed, and he seemed to be asleep. Seeing the sleeping posture of the two people, one big and the other small, Shinolin couldn't help but smile. At this time, a gentle breeze blew over her beautiful face, and she found that she felt a little sleepy after just finishing her big meal. If that's the case, then I'll join in. Shinolin smiled slightly, then found a clean grassy area and lay down comfortably on it. Not knowing how long he had slept, Lu Ang suddenly heard someone shouting in a daze. Master Hero, where are you? Come out quickly and help. If you don't come out, Orangetown will be finished. Whoa, hero brother, where are you running? Come out quickly. Those bad guys are too fierce. Please show up quickly and drive them away. Lu Ang slowly opened his eyes and yawned. Why do I seem to hear someone calling me? He punched the grass with one hand and slowly climbed up. At the same time, Shanya and Shinolin also woke up. Not long after the three of them woke up at the same time, a little girl wearing a kitten skirt suddenly walked to the slope by the river. When she saw Lu Ang, she was instantly surprised and jumped up. Dad, Grandpa, I found the heroic brother. As the little girl screamed in surprise, two other simply dressed Orangetown residents also ran over. When they saw Lu Ang and the others, the old man and the young man immediately rushed over and knelt down without saying a word. Master Hero, please make it easy for us to find him. Hurry up, come back to Orangetown with us, there are pirates coming again. Yes, this time the pirates are more ferocious and terrifying. They are the dragon pirates. Apart from you, we in Orangetown can no longer find anyone else who can deal with him. Please do it, help us, please. The two men were crying and begging. The sudden scene made Lu Ang a little confused, but he quickly reacted and quickly helped the two people up without saying a word. It's okay for the young man to kneel to himself. The old man also came, but Lu Ang was not frightened. He has not forgotten a warning from his hometown. Wulin must never let his seniors kowtow to him, otherwise his life will be shortened. At this time, Shanya also frowned. The dragon pirates. This guy is currently the strongest and most vicious pirate in the East China Sea. Shinolin nodded, with the same solemn expression. She may not necessarily understand other little pirates, but she still knows the famous dragon pirates very well. Because Marine's headquarters and large branches are not in the East China Sea, the evil dragon is lawless and does evil here. In addition, the power of the fishmen themselves is far stronger than that of ordinary humans. When ordinary villages and small towns encounter the dragon pirates, they almost have the fate of being dominated. Shanya glanced at Luang. Are you sure you want to take action? That guy is extraordinary. Shinolan nodded, also showing a hint of worry. Although they have seen Luang take action, because every time Luang takes action, he is extremely clean and neat, and does not show any particularly shocking power. This led them to feel that although Luang was not weak, he was not much stronger. Luang glanced at the two of them and immediately knew what kind of level he was in their eyes. But he doesn't care too much. After all, sometimes keeping a low profile can help you live longer. Even if a tree is beautiful in the forest, it will be destroyed by the wind. He still understands this truth. It wasn't necessary, and he didn't want to be too showy. Don't worry, it's just an evil dragon, I don't take it to heart yet. Luang smiled and patted Shanya on the shoulder, and then said to the three residents of Orangetown, let's go, I also want to know how much this so-called strongest pirate in the East China Sea weighs. Seeing that Luang accepted the plea without hesitation, the three of them burst into tears instantly. Sure enough, I was right about this hero. He is indeed a kind-hearted, upright, and peerless good man. Luang didn't care what these people thought. Rather than these meaningless comments, what he cared more about was how much bounty this evil dragon could bring him. In his impression, in addition to the evil dragon, several other members of the pirate group seemed to be quite valuable. This Orangetown is really a blessed place for me. There are so many delicious food and drinks here. I bought second-generation Kaitaru here, and now I met a pirate group who delivered, takeaway, to my door. Wow, I'm so excited I'm a little reluctant to leave here. With a happy mood, Luang walked quickly towards Orangetown. Shanya glanced at Luang with contempt. This guy has such a big grin, he is probably thinking about the bounty again. Although he didn't know how strong Luang was, since this guy was so confident, it meant that he might really have the strength to defeat the evil dragon. But for some reason, he just couldn't stand this guy's too arrogant expression. Shinolan was a little worried at this time, although she also wanted to have confidence in Luang. But the evil dragon does not need other pirate groups. This is an extremely powerful pirate whose reputation also shocked the entire East China Sea. Although Luang is strong, she still has no confidence in whether he can defeat the evil dragon. Different from the mood of these three people, the three grandparents and grandchildren from Orangetown next to them looked confident and full of hope. They have blind confidence in Luang. They believe that Luang is the hero sent by God to save their Orangetown. This unassuming hero can definitely defeat the dragon pirates and restore tranquility and peace to Orangetown. At the entrance of the village of Orangetown, the evil dragon who had been waiting for a long time finally became impatient. He glanced at Orangetown, and suddenly his eyes fell on the mayor Budal not far away. He said with a cold face, "You are too slow, I can't wait for another day, another hour. If you can't find that hero within an hour, then I will charge your head fee." Upon hearing this, Budal's expression changed greatly. What he was most afraid of and worried about finally happened. Because the boat of Luang and the others was still parked at the port, it meant that they must not have gone far. As long as the residents of Orangetown are given a little time, they can definitely be found within a day. But he never expected that the evil dragon would suddenly change his mind again. Originally there was at least half a day left, but now there is only 1 hour left. How is this enough? Budal's face was pale and he said with fear, You can't do this. You said, it will take 1 day. The evil dragon slowly rolled his eyes and looked at Budal with a murderous look on his face. The member of the dragon pirate ship on the side, the most powerful and seemingly strongest Fishman suddenly said, "This is the kindness of our boss. Don't be ungrateful. If you continue to be nagging, I will throw you into the sea immediately. Go fish." The evil dragon grinned and said, "Hey, crewbie, be gentle, don't scare our old mayor, he still has to collect money for us residents." Upon hearing this, Budal's expression suddenly changed, and he gritted his teeth, but did not dare to say another word. "Hey, brothers and sisters of Orangetown, you have to work harder, there is only 1 hour left for the survival of Orangetown." Looking at the town in front of him, where he was born and raised in his favorite town, Budal's face was filled with sadness. Now he can do nothing but pray. Time passed by, and when a subordinate of the evil dragon walked up to the evil dragon with a watch and said a few words to him, the evil dragon suddenly grinned and said, "Hey, you old man, don't say I don't have any. I'll give you a chance. Now the time is up. It seems that the hero you talk about hasn't appeared yet. It seems that no one can save you today. Upon hearing this, Boodle's face instantly turned pale, and he immediately waved his hands and begged, "Wait, wait, give us a little more time is enough." Kroob crossed his arms and snorted coldly, "Ha, I've given you enough time. Now, gather all the residents together immediately, and bring life money with you." Juya raised his head with an indifferent look on his face, "Go and do it right away. If you delay it again, we'll make you look good later." Looking at this group of ferocious fishmen, Boodle's old face burst into tears, full of fear and bitterness. Is this God going to punish us in Orange Town? With tears in his eyes and despair in his eyes, he turned around and prepared to inform the residents. However, just when he turned around, he saw a familiar figure with a slight smile. Behind this figure, a group of residents who were originally shivering and fearful as rats were following closely with excitement on their faces and their heads held high. Like a king's entourage, everyone's face is full of piety and respect. With a sunny smile on his face, Luang raised his hand and greeted Boodle, "Uncle, we meet again." "Hero, Sir Hero, you are finally here." When he saw Luang and the face he had longed for, Lao Budor burst into tears and knelt down without saying a word. "Sir Hero, please save our Orange Town one more time." Ouch, F. Seeing this scene, Luang's scalp went numb instantly and he rushed over without saying a word. The moment Boodle's knees hit the floor, he quickly supported him. He really couldn't bear this kneeling, and he didn't dare to bear it. Kneel down and your life will be shortened by several years. It would be strange if he didn't cry to death. Although this custom may be exaggerated, it may not even be true. But adhering to the principle of preferring to believe what he has rather than what he has not, Luang still dare not let any elder kneel down to him. However, principles are principles. In the eyes of others, this action is a different scene. Luang's support immediately made everyone respect and love him infinitely. This hero is not only benevolent and upright, but also a good man who respects the elderly and loves the young. Shanya and Shinolin also showed a hint of appreciation. After all, in the world of One Piece, it is common to be arrogant and domineering and bully others. There are too few people like Luang who dare to punish evil and promote good, but also have benevolence and righteousness in their hearts. "Please get up quickly. I can't stand your kneeling. Don't worry, now that I'm here, I won't just sit back and ignore you." While Luang helped Boodle up, he reluctantly said words that he felt were a little against his will. Of course he couldn't tell these people that he knew how to deal with the dragon. Although there are some reasons why he doesn't like his behavior, it's mostly because of the reward. At this moment, the evil dragon slowly stood up. He looked at Luang condescendingly and said with disdain, "Are you the hero these trash talkers?" Luang carried second-generation ghost on his shoulders and grinned, "Hey, I don't dare to be a hero, but I shouldn't have any problem beating a bear like you. How dare you call our boss a bear?" With a roar, Kroob's eyes popped out. He stepped forward, immediately clenched his fist and punched Luang. "Try my 100-piece Wajung fist." Krooby punched out angrily, instantly causing a riot in the air. As if it was about to explode the void, it caused a strong fist wind to hit Luang angrily. This was enough to make ordinary people look terrified, unable to resist the terrifying punch that fell into Luang's eyes, but it was nothing. He shook his head, sighed and said, "Too weak." "What?" Just when Krooby was surprised, Luang suddenly stretched out his left hand, and without any skill or strength, he took it easily. How could this happen? Krooby was dumbfounded when he saw that his punch, which was enough to shatter a boulder, could not even shake the opponent's palm. The evil dragon, who was about to watch a joke and see how Luang was kicked lying on the ground, also had a dull look on his face. With this level of power, what's so surprising? Luang glanced at the dragon pirates lightly, and then held Kroob's fist in his palm. The next second, he exerted force violently. Having inherited the power of red hair, and adding various powers to pirates big and small, he suddenly burst out with extremely terrifying grip strength at this moment. Just heard a click. The Fishman's fist, which was countless times stronger than ordinary people, was directly crushed to pieces by him at this moment. Oh! With an extremely shrill scream, Krooby kept retreating, and his whole square face was twisted in pain as he held his wrist. What a terrifying grip! Where did this guy come from? Seeing Kruby's proud fist turn to pieces of flesh and blood in an instant, becoming as soft as water, the evil dragon's face also turned gloomy. Ding! Congratulations on defeating Kruby and gaining strength plus 3-0. It's actually twice as powerful as Crow. The bounty is obviously far less than Crow. Tisk, tisk, he is indeed a strong Fishman karate master. Looking at Kruby, who was screaming repeatedly, Luang showed a smile. Who else is coming next? Luang turned his wrist and glanced calmly at the horrified dragon pirates. The Fishman pirate, who was extremely arrogant a second ago, kept secretive at this second and looked at Luang with fear on his face. Kruby is second only to the dragon in the dragon pirates. Even he was easily crushed, let alone the others. Except for the evil dragon, none of the fishmen at the scene dared to look Luang in the eyes again. You have good strength, but if you think you can defeat the dragon pirates just like this, you are looking down on me. The evil dragon smiled ferociously and stretched out his left hand, and soon his subordinates brought his special serrated long knife. Now, I'll show you how terrifying my dragon is. The moment he held the serrated sword, the evil dragon's eyes suddenly revealed its ferocious look, and then it viciously slashed Luang head on. The serrated sword, which was more than 10 meters long, seemed to be cutting off the sky. It brought up a terrifying wind and slashed down with a thunderous force. Danger! Shanya yelled, and at the critical moment, he quickly pulled Shinolin and rushed to the side. Seeing this huge sword chopped down, all the residents of Orangetown instantly showed fear and despair. Can the hero handle such a terrifying broadsword and such a fierce slash? The answer is yes. Ah! At the critical moment, Luang sneered. His left hand turned into pitch black, and his armed domineering energy clung to it in an instant. Then, he lightly held the extremely fierce and terrifying long knife. At the same time, the terrifying sword force brought strong wind, which directly swept away a group of Orangetown residents. At the moment when everyone was exclaiming and shouting, an angry shout also sounded at the same time. Impossible! The person who made this sound was none other than the boss of the dragon pirates, the dragon. Everyone in the East China Sea knows how heavy this serrated sword is and how powerful it is. Not to mention 10 times, even 20 times, 30 times, or even 40 times the strength of ordinary people would never be able to catch this sword. But Luang, this ordinary-looking man, caught it, and he caught it with the strength of his body. Obviously, his seemingly thin body hides unimaginable terrifying power. No, the color of your palm, you will be domineering. At this time, the evil dragon suddenly noticed the color of Luang's left hand, and his face suddenly changed. He knows very well about domineering. Even the most ordinary domineering is not something that ordinary people can master. This requires extremely difficult, extremely hard, and extremely extreme training before you have a 1 in 8,000 chance of mastering it. Among ordinary people, not one person out of 10,000 may be able to master it through training. But the man in front of me has mastered it. This shows that he is not an ordinary person, but also a strong human race who is unique among all. You can even master the domineering entanglement. Who are you? From the moment he saw the domineering force, the evil dragon knew that he might not be this man's opponent. A person who can even control the domineering entanglement will never be inferior to him in strength. Me, I'm just an ordinary bounty hunter. Luang grinned, then glanced at the evil dragon, and continued, are you going to tie yourself up and follow me to Marine, or should I tie it up for you? Upon hearing this, the evil dragon's anger soared instantly. I bet this guy sees himself as prey. Although she may not be his opponent, she is definitely not the kind of trash that can be easily captured. HMPH, even if you are domineering, Lousy will definitely not be afraid of you. The evil dragon clenched the serrated knife angrily, preparing to draw it back and attack again. However, he found that the long knife that he used to be most handy with seemed to be fixed, and he could not pull it back even if he was alive. What a hassle! Luang sighed, and then with a little force, he crushed the terrifying serrated knife in an instant. He stepped forward and came to the evil dragon at lightning speed, gently grabbing his face in the dragon's stunned and puzzled eyes. Immediately, there was a loud bang. He violently pushed the evil dragon's head directly to the ground, and made a deep hole of less than 1 meter in the ground. Ding! Congratulations on defeating the dragon and gaining strength plus 5-0. Lu Ang was stunned for a moment when he saw the news, and then his eyes showed a hint of joy. He didn't expect that the power of the evil dragon was much greater than that of Crow before, and he directly increased it by 50 points. The normal strength of ordinary people is 1 point, and 50 points is a full 50 times the strength. As expected, he is indeed a fishman, and his strength is far beyond what ordinary people can match. The moment he killed the evil dragon, the whole world became quiet. All the members of the Dragon Pirates were dumbfounded and couldn't believe the scene before them. That is their boss, a big pirate who can dominate the entire East China Sea in terms of strength, speed, and overall combat effectiveness. Now, he was beaten down by an unknown and unremarkable young man. How can this be? Completely opposite to the behavior of the Fishman pirates, the residents of Orangetown were stunned at first, and then showed ecstasy. The hero has defeated the dragon. As one of the middle-aged men with beards raised his hands and shouted, all the other residents suddenly cheered. The hero is so powerful, so mighty, and so handsome. Ha ha ha, you are indeed our hero, he actually defeated the pirates again. He must be our hero, ha ha ha. At this time, Shanya also stared at the evil dragon who was knocked to the ground with an expression of disbelief. He knew how powerful the evil dragon was, and he also knew that Lu Ang was not simple. But he never expected that Lu Ang could knock the evil dragon to the ground with such a crushing force. The impact of this scene on him was really too great. Shinolin was also stunned for a moment, but soon a smile appeared in his eyes. He is indeed the man she admires. You actually dared to knock down our boss. Seeing this scene, Xiao Ba, who looked like an octopus beside him, looked at Lu Ang with anger in his eyes. By the way, you seem to have some bounty too. At this moment, Lu Ang suddenly noticed a chirp with a long mouth on the side. He grinned and said what he said to the dragon before. Do you want to tie it up yourself, or should I help you? Soon, Ju was also knocked down by Lu Angan. Ding! Congratulations on hitting Chu, you gained strength plus 2-0. As for Octopus Xiaoba, after seeing Lu Ang knock down a cadre again, he finally backed down in fear. This man is terrible. He gritted his teeth, then turned around and ran away. Being defeated and dying are two different things. As a fishman swordsman, he is not a fool. Fight or flee, the choice between the two is naturally clear. Octopus Xiaoba had no bounty on his head, so Lu Ang didn't stop him from leaving. He just ran away if he wanted to. As for the other pirates, after seeing that the eldest, second and third eldest brother couldn't defeat Lu Ang, they also screamed and ran away in the blink of an eye. Just like that, in Orangetown, after the Buggy Pirates, the Dragon Pirates became the second pirate group to be defeated by Lu Ang. Although he ran away with a buggy, he caught a dragon with a higher bounty. This income still made Lu Ang quite satisfied. At this time, Lu Ang suddenly thought of something, turned around and asked Budal, by the way, sir, isn't there a marine station in our town? Does it accept pirates? Hearing this, Budal couldn't help but smile bitterly. He shook his head and said, hey, don't mention it. There is an old man at that old station. He is older than me. He is responsible for forwarding and receiving the marine phone bug signal. There is no such thing. What's the use? Lu Ang. When he heard that he was older than Budal, Lu Ang gave up decisively. Okay, so where is the nearest marine base? I know where it is. At this moment, a clear female voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. Then, a beautiful woman with long orange hair, wearing a pink top and tight jeans suddenly squeezed out of the crowd. Nami. Seeing this woman with a bright smile, white complexion and graceful figure, Lu Ang couldn't help but call out her name. Ha, you know me. Nami was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that this hero could actually call out his name at a glance. Lu Ang's expression was stagnant, his mind was spinning rapidly, and he quickly found a very lame excuse and said, ahem, what, I overheard someone calling you that yesterday. Oh. Nami nodded slightly, not particularly paying attention to this matter. At this time, Shinolin glanced at Nami's chest and then at Lu Ang, with a hint of anger in his eyes. HMPH, this guy really only cares about plump beauties. Shanya obviously also noticed Shinolin's expression. He touched the back of his head, but his face was full of confusion. By the way, is it true that you know the nearest marine base? I want to exchange the bounty with Marine. As Lu Ang spoke, He pointed at the 3 evil dragons behind him with his raised thumb. Hearing this, Nami patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, I know your purpose. There is a Marine colonel in the Marine base there, and he will definitely be happy to accept these pirates." Looking at the big rabbit that was shaking slightly, Luang couldn't help but shrink his eyes, and then coughed violently. Cough cough, cough cough cough. Nami didn't know why, so she quickly ran up worriedly. She patted Luang on the back and asked with concern, "What's wrong with you, Mr. Hero?" When Shinolan saw this, he immediately came over with an angry face, pulled Luang over, and looked at Nami with an evil look on his face. "The captain is fine. He can be taken care of by me as a crew member. You don't have to worry about it." Seeing this scene, Luang couldn't help but be speechless. What kind of jealousy is this girl feeling? Before Shinolan could speak again, Luang quickly said, "Miss Nami, this is my helmsman and boatman, Shinolan." She speaks more straightforwardly, so don't mind too much. Others may not know it clearly, but Luang is very clear about Nami's advantages. This guy is an excellent navigator who even a super pirate like Golden Lion wants to take as his own. She knows navigation directions, routes, maps and even all kinds of geography very well. She is a real talent. If you can use it for your own use, it will be even more powerful for you. Nami shook his head and said with a smile, "No, no, no, no. Being able to be with a great hero, Miss Shinolan must be an excellent person as well." How could I mind what she said? Obviously, Nami is also a very perceptive person. A very simple sentence immediately eliminated most of the hostility between her and Shinolan. As expected, after hearing this, the anger on Shinolan's face suddenly disappeared. Luang said, "By the way, where is the Marine base you just mentioned? Is it convenient to take me there?" This sentence was exactly what Nami wanted to hear most. She nodded immediately, clenched her pink fists, and said excitedly, "Of course, that place is called Loguetown, and I know the fastest route, if..." Before Nami could finish speaking, Shinolan pouted her little mouth. "Ha, I also know how to get to Loguetown, you don't need to say more." "Ah, that's it, then, okay." Nami sighed, then shook his head, turned and left. Looking at Nami's retreating figure, Luang frowned slightly. He naturally knew that Shinolan also had some basic knowledge of navigation, and relied on her guidance along the way. But she only knows this part of the East China Sea. If she goes out of the East China Sea, she may not necessarily understand it. Nami is different. She understands and accepts new knowledge very quickly. Even after leaving the East China Sea, she can rely on what she has learned to further guide her on her way forward. Although at first he was trying not to affect the main plot, but now, he found that he was actually affecting it unknowingly. For example, the pirate crow, such as Creek, such as Buggy, such as the evil dragon, these dungeons that should have been defeated by Luffy were all cleared by him alone. Without the foreshadowing of these copies, Luffy's growth would definitely not be that fast. In other words, he has influenced the development of the main plot in a subtle way. If that's the case, then just do it to the end. I might as well just accept Nami, so that I won't have to worry about my subsequent sailing trip. After all, navigators are not that easy to find. As for Luffy and the others, Luang believes that with his luck as the protagonist, he will definitely meet a more suitable navigator than Nami. As soon as his thoughts changed, Luang immediately gave Shinolan a look. Then he smiled at Nami, who looked lonely and distressed, and called out, "Miss Nami, after thinking about it, I think it would be more appropriate for you to lead me. Are you willing to take me along?" Luang's words were no less than the sound of nature to Nami, and she quietly wiped away her tears. Then he turned around quickly, with a hint of red in his beautiful big eyes. She nodded crazily, like a chicken pecking at rice, and said without hesitation, "Yes, yes, I do." Although Shinolan was a little unhappy, she still had to accept Nami under Luang's strong request. Luang, who wanted to leave immediately, ended up staying in Orange Town for 2 more days. The reason is that the entire residents of Orange Town feel that he is the messenger sent by God to save them. No matter what, she must let him accept their warmest hospitality before letting her go. Luang was also quite helpless about this, but he couldn't refuse the hospitality, so he had to accept their hospitality. Finally, With a boat full of food and various daily necessities, Luang set out to sea again. After returning to the boat, Nami seemed very sensible, as if she was afraid that Luang would drive her off the boat, so she helped with various hard and tiring tasks whenever she had time. In the end, Luang couldn't stand it anymore, so he told her directly, "You just need to be responsible for what you should do as a navigator." Although Shinolin was hostile to Nami at first, women's hearts are always soft. But when she saw Nami taking on all the tiring and dirty work without any complaints, she finally softened up. It didn't take long for the two of them to go from strangers, even enemies, to good sisters now. Even, in order to enhance her strength, Nami also participated in the most rigorous special training. The days at sea were dull and pleasant, and more than half a month passed quickly. In more than half a month, Nami's strength actually increased from 10 pounds to 30 pounds. Her amplification efficiency is not weaker than that of Shinolin. After learning that Luang was willing to teach Shinolin's sword skills, Nami also used a honey trap and begged Luang day after day. Seeing the chest shaking violently and attacking, Luang finally agreed. Although he had this idea from the beginning, he still pretended to be embarrassed. After all, things that are too easy to obtain will never be cherished. After getting Luang's permission, Nami's enthusiasm for special training became even higher. Lying on the deck, blowing the frosty sea breeze, looking at the Bounty Pirate catalog, Luang took a sip of orange juice with a satisfied expression on his face, and then slowly put it down. Occasionally, he would turn his head and look at the rough waves not far away, and he suddenly felt much happier. Tisk, tisk, this is life. Luang admired from the bottom of his heart. He did not expect that he could travel through the world of One Piece, nor did he expect that he could live so freely and comfortably in the world of One Piece. Now, he feels like he doesn't want to go back. I finally understand what it means to be happy and not miss Shu. Hey, if it were me, I wouldn't miss Shu either. Luang sighed, took a sip of orange, and continued to browse the bounty catalog happily. The murderer Luca. Is there such a person in the East China Sea? At this moment, Luang suddenly read the introduction of a one-eyed pirate. This Luca turned out to be a pirate from the old era. He became one of the big pirates in the East China Sea more than 30 years ago. What he is most famous for is not only his habit of using his hands to tear apart his enemies but also his special bloodthirsty. Whether it's a pirate, a marine, or a civilian, anyone who is targeted by him will be slaughtered. His strength and speed are extremely terrifying, and at his most ferocious, he is even on par with Lieutenant General Marine. At this level, it is already considered an extremely terrifying existence here in the East China Sea. After all, even the evil dragon is at most on the same level as Major General Marine, or even weaker. But this Luca's introduction is on par with Lieutenant General Marine, which is enough to show how terrifying his power is. Unfortunately, due to the rise of more powerful pirates such as One Piece, Whitebeard, Rocks and Golden Lion, his fame has gradually been forgotten. Then he disappeared without realizing it. But since this bounty directory still exists, it means that this guy has not been caught by Marine, or in other words, his death has not been confirmed. The reason Luang cares about this person is because his bounty actually reaches 50 million belly. This is no small sum. If you are still alive and I happen to catch you, you will make a lot of money. Luang grinned, then turned to another page and continued to read with interest. The leisurely days always make it easy for people to forget the passage of time. Not long after, another month passed. In this month, Shinolin's strength completely broke through to 500 pounds. Shanya also reached 500 pounds, but what really surprised Luang was Nami. She looks even slimmer than Nolan, but she actually weighs 200 pounds. In just 1.5 months, he went from 10 pounds to 200 pounds. This growth rate surprised even Luang. According to this efficiency, I'm afraid it won't take a year to reach 1,000 pounds. It seems that not long after, I will have 2 more powerful female swordsmen on my ship. Watching the 2 of them training enthusiastically, Luang also showed a hint of expectation. As for Shanya, at only 10 years old, he has such perseverance and resilience, and his future cannot be underestimated. On a cloudy morning, Luang, who had just finished a delicious breakfast, was about to come out on the deck to enjoy the breeze. He couldn't help but be startled for a breath of air. The clouds are actually gathering. Hey, it seems I can't read here today. With a look of helplessness on his face, Luang shook his head. Then he leapt up, quickly jumped onto the mast, and collected and tied all the canvases with deft movements. The canvas cannot be opened until the storm has passed, otherwise the big boat will probably be taken off. On the sea, one of the most terrifying disasters is a storm. Luang didn't want his sailing trip to be aborted like this. Okay, it's time to go back to the cabin and play. After finishing it, Luang clapped his hands, turned around and walked back to the cabin. At this time, Nami and the other three were still helping Shanya sort out the dishes. They couldn't help but look puzzled when they saw Luang coming down. Nami, Captain, don't you want to go on the deck to get some fresh air? According to past habits, after breakfast, Luang would always go to the bow of the ship to look at the sea and take a few steps on the deck. Unexpectedly, he came back all of a sudden today, which made Nami a little confused. Shinolin also smiled and said, "Are you tired of looking at the sea, sir?" Luang glanced at the turbulent situation between the two of them and said, "Fortunately, I won't get tired of it, but it's just a bit big." Nami tilted his head and asked in confusion, "What's a little big?" Shinolin puffed up his face angrily. Nami didn't notice, but she saw it clearly. The captain is obviously evaluating her size and discussing the price again. At this moment, a burst of lightning and thunder suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. The moment they heard this voice, Nami and the other three couldn't help but froze. Immediately, the word, storm, flashed through the minds of the three of them. Hurry up, put the canvas down quickly, it will be too late to wait until the storm hits. Nami yelled and immediately turned around and ran towards the cabin. At this time, Luang yawned, waved his hand and said, "No, I just put it away before I came down. Just stay in the cabin." Shinolin shook his head and said, "No, as the helmsman, I still have to go up. If a huge wave hits at this time, it will be over." As she spoke, she said to Nami and Shanya in the kitchen, "You two will do the rest, I'll go up and take a look first." After saying that, Shinolin ran up without saying a word. When a storm hits, wouldn't it be enough to just hide in the boat? Luang touched his chin and suddenly realized that he seemed to have thought navigation was too simple. After all, in reality, he does have no sailing experience, and has no common sense about navigation. No, as a captain, how can I let a girl rush ahead? Forget it, I'd better go up and help. Although I really want to hang out in the cabin bedroom and enjoy reading a book in the storm. But compared to this fun, the safety of the entire ship is obviously much more important. When he returned to the deck again, Luang couldn't help but look serious. The dark clouds in front of me were as dark as hell, and terrifying thunder and lightning kept passing through the clouds. Earth-shaking thunder also flashed by from time to time, causing a deafening and terrifying sound. Feeling the extremely depressing aura, Shinolin's hands were trembling slightly. This is also the first time she has gone to sea alone as a helmsman, and it is also the first time she has encountered such harsh weather. Walking behind Shinolin, Luang put his hands in his pockets and smiled slightly. "Relax, I will always stand by your side." Looking at the man standing next to him, looking at the corners of his mouth that were always smiling, Shinolin couldn't help but feel a little calmer. With this man here, there seems to be nothing that cannot be solved. Just like an eternal backer, no matter what happens, as long as he is there, everything can be healed. Shinolin's scowl softened for the most part, and he nodded slightly. Not long after, the storm started to hit. It was raining a little at first, then the drizzle came slowly, neither painful nor itchy. But soon, the rain gradually became heavier and more intense. In less than a few minutes, it turned into huge raindrops, and began to gradually form a downpour. Luang and Shinolin were soaked in the blink of an eye. But Shinolin still gritted his teeth and tried hard to maintain the direction of the rudder while looking at the direction and momentum of the waves. The icy, cold and violent rainstorm hit him like a bullet, making Shinolin tremble in pain. But she never said a word, with firm eyes and a resolute expression, and she kept steering the rudder to avoid one terrible wave after another. Luang stood silently beside Shinolin, and could do nothing except occasionally splitting the splashing waves for her. "It's not going to work like this. It's better to find a big, burly man to be the helmsman." Lu Ang felt extremely uncomfortable when he saw Shinolan's delicate body trembling crazily like a fragile little flower under the baptism of the storm. But he really doesn't know how to operate, so he can only be worried and distressed by his side. Fortunately, the storm came and went quickly. With Shinolan's desperate fighting, he finally survived the storm. Not long after, we entered a zone where the rain has passed and the sky is clear and the sky is clear. And Shinolan, who had been baptized by the storm for a long time, also directly developed a fever because of this battle. In the cabin bedroom, watching Nami and Shanya busy taking care of Shinolan, Lu Ang felt extremely guilty. Although this was originally the responsibility of the helmsman, it was quite uncomfortable for him to see Shinolan like this. Seeing that her charming face, which was originally as white as jade, was now burning red, Lu Ang couldn't help but clenched his fist slightly. He secretly said to himself, "Don't worry, next time I return to land, I will find a tall partner to be the helmsman, and you can just be your professional boatman with peace of mind." Quote, Shinolan is very capable and can endure hardships, but Lu Ang also knows that she cannot be used like shedding wool, using one person as two or three. What is the difference between this kind of self and a capitalist? Even if Shinolan has no regrets, he has never had any obstacles in his heart. Be kind and kind. Lu Ang sighed and took away the towel on Shinolan's forehead. This towel is already cold. He needs to change it to a hot one. In this way, under the careful, attentive and considerate care of Lu Ang and the others, Shinolan finally recovered after a week. During this process, Lu Ang also secretly made a plan. That is, in addition to finding a powerful helmsman, you must also find a professional, reliable, and capable ship doctor as soon as possible. This time it was just a high fever, which sent the three of them into a panic. If there are other symptoms, it's not the end of the world. Therefore, like the helmsman, the ship's doctor is also in great need, eager, and urgent. On the deck, Lu Ang put down the book in his hand, looked at Nami who had just finished special training, and asked, "By the way, Nami, how long will it take for us to be away from Loguetown?" Nami looked around and then at his navigation needle. After thinking for a while, he said, "It will take about a week or so." Of course, this is not nonsense, but Nami comprehensively determines his current location based on the current climate characteristics, geography, and navigational needles. This gives an approximate time distance. The top navigators in One Piece are naturally beyond the reach of ordinary people. Lu Ang nodded, then continued to pick up the book in his hand and continued to read it with interest. Correct. At this time, Nami suddenly thought of something, and with a breath after special training, she slowly walked up to Lu Ang. "Well, Captain, after we arrive in Loguetown, can you find a time to send me to Kokoja village?" Kokoja village. Lu Ang took down the book. The name of the village seemed a bit familiar to him. Nami's face turned slightly red and she nodded slightly. "Yeah, that's my hometown. I want to go back and say goodbye to my sister and everyone I know." After these days of getting along, Nami has gradually gotten used to it and even fallen in love with everyone on this ship. The lazy and undisciplined but extremely reliable Captain Lu Ang. The careful, gentle, and talented boatman Shinolan. There is also Shanya, a chef who looks stinky and arrogant, but is actually full of passion. Everyone has their own unique personality, but at critical moments they are like a family. Being able to hug each other tightly and face difficulties together. Isn't this kind of team, such partners, and such a home-like place what she has always longed for? The most important thing is that Lu Ang also helped her deal with the evil dragon, even if it wasn't because of her. This huge kindness is worth her lifetime to repay. After hearing Nami's request, Lu Ang nodded and agreed without saying a word. Hometown is the most beautiful existence hidden in the memory of every wanderer who travels far away. This is true for Nami, and even more so for Lu Ang. Therefore, when he heard Nami's look with a hint of request, Lu Ang agreed without hesitation. "Let's visit your home by the way, ha ha ha." Nami rubbed his eyes that were a little red from being moved and happy, nodded heavily and said, "Well, thank you, Captain." After hearing this, Lu Ang couldn't help laughing. "Why are you so polite? Aren't we already partners?" Hearing this, Nami was stunned. Then, tears burst out of my face uncontrollably. She has been waiting for this sentence for too long. Because before she boarded the ship, Her original request to Luang was to take them to Loguetown. She has not yet found a chance to bring up the matter of becoming partners with Luang. Unexpectedly, he had already become a companion in Luang's eyes, and he burst into tears of joy in an instant. Oh shit. Seeing Nami bit her lower lip and shed tears of joy, Luang panicked instantly. He hadn't had a girlfriend yet, so he didn't know how to comfort her at all, and he was scratching his head in a hurry. At this time, Shinolin also came over. When she saw Nami burst into tears, she immediately puffed up her face. She put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "Sir, how can you bully Miss Nami? She is just a girl." After hearing this, Luang couldn't help but waved his hands and explained, "No, it's not me. You bully even girls, don't you think you're a man?" Accompanied by a cold scolding, Shanya also walked over with his lips curled. Luang. At this time, Nami shook her head. She took the tissue handed over by Shinolin and wiped her tears while saying, "No, you all misunderstood the captain. He just said that he has regarded me as a partner. I was surprised and happy when I heard this, and then I was moved to tears. It was not his fault." Luang spread his hands and said helplessly, "Right, how could I bully her? It's not the first day you met me. How could such a good young man like me do something so unscrupulous? This thing is simply impossible. Shanya, TCH, let's go, you two come down with me and I'll make you delicious morning tea." Shinolin, Nami, ignore him, let's go to the cabin and eat delicious food. Nami, yeah. Afterwards, the three of them walked quickly towards the cabin, leaving Luang alone in a daze. What the hell, what about me? After hearing with their own ears that Luang treated Nami as his partner, Shanya and Shinolin also became very happy. Obviously, after more than a month of getting along, the two of them have regarded Nami as one of their own. Nami also officially joined their team because of Luang's words. A week passed quickly. When Luang stepped on the deck on the morning of the 7th day, he saw a piece of land approaching him from a distance. Looks like we're almost at our destination. Looking at the increasingly clear coastline, Luang couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth. In almost 2 months, he almost vomited from drinking the sea breeze. By the way, Captain, would you like to make a flag too? Just when Luang was feeling the pleasure of the sea breeze, a clear voice sounded from behind. Luang turned around, and Nami, who was wearing yellow shorts and a white placket, walked towards him with a smile. Luang looked at the empty canvas and asked with confusion on his face, "Flag? What flag? Why do you do this?" Looking at Luang's confused and innocent eyes, Nami couldn't help but smile. It seemed that the captain really knew nothing about the function of the flag. Nami smiled and said, "This flag is something to show your identity. If it is a marine, it can deter pirates. If it is a pirate, it can promote yourself. It also has the same function for things like merchant ships. They are not the same, but with a flag, we can better demonstrate our characteristics." Luang touched his chin and after looking at it for a long time, he said, "In other words, is this a sign to promote yourself?" Nami gave a thumbs up and praised, "Yes, Captain, you are right, that's it." Hearing this, Luang couldn't help but shake his head and immediately refused. No, forget it, I think this is good." The reason why he refused was because he didn't want to get his fame out. "You know, I am not a pirate or a marine, but a pure bounty hunter. If he became famous, all the pirates would immediately turn around and run away when they saw him. In this way, how can my own Grandpa Mao make money? In the past, because I did not put up a flag, I was treated as an ordinary ship by the passing sea dragon pirates and robbed. How could such a good thing that can attract takeaways be easily changed?" There is no way Luang would agree. Nami wanted to persuade her again, but at this time Shinolin came over with a smile. "Nami, you'd better just listen to him on this one." As Shinolin spoke, he leaned close to Nami's ear and told her everything that had happened before. Nami, who was originally confused, couldn't help but change from doubt to understanding after hearing this, but soon changed from understanding to surprise again. It turns out that this is how the captain arranged it. He is indeed a wise captain. Nami gave Luang another thumbs up. Looking at this thumb made Luang confused. After about 2 hours, their ship finally arrived in Loguetown. After getting off the ship, Luang generously handed over 10,000 belly, which was almost enough for 10 days of parking expenses. This is Loguetown. It is indeed the legendary one-piece execution place. It is much larger than other small villages and towns. The moment he stepped into Loguetown, Luang felt that the flow of people and boats here was far more lively and prosperous than the various large and small villages and towns he had encountered before. It is unknown whether this was due to the execution of One Piece Roger and the attraction effect it brought. But what is certain is that because Roger was executed here, the entire Roger town has become the most famous tourist destination in the East China Sea and even the entire One Piece world. After getting off the ship, Luang took the 3 half-dead evil dragons, who had already become skinny from hunger, and walked quickly towards the marine base without even thinking about it. The marine base in Loguetown is obviously much larger than the marine base we saw before. Even when I saw the huge word marine engraved on the building like a giant fortress, Luang was a little doubtful whether this was the real marine base. Before arriving at the gate of the base, Luang, who was dragging 3 murlocs with him, immediately explained his purpose to the 2 marine soldiers guarding the base. "Well, please wait a moment." The marine soldier on the left nodded, turned around and walked in with his gun on his back without saying a word. Looking at the huge gate, which was no less than 20 meters long, Shinolin couldn't help but look shocked. "Oh my god, the marine base here is much bigger than the ones I've encountered before. Even the gate is no less than twice the size." Shanya was also surprised, because the marine base in front of him was actually twice the size of the restaurant on the sea. He thought that the marine base was just like what he had seen before, with 2 or 3 floors. Now after meeting the marine base in Loguetown, I realized that my knowledge was too little. I had gone on robberies with the dragon's ship before, and also passed through Loguetown, so Nami was not unfamiliar with this marine base. Tisk, tisk, there are so many cannons, this is like a battle fortress. Looking at the various Cold War weapons placed around the marine base, Luang couldn't help but admire them. If marine bases in other places are bare bikes, then this one is equivalent to top-notch bikes. Let's not talk about the scale of the building or the number of soldiers. Just those dozens of cannons were enough to turn the marine bases we encountered earlier into rubbish in seconds. Shinolin sighed. "I'm afraid this is the real marine base." Nami nodded, fully agreeing with Shinolin's sigh. "Yeah, this Loguetown is indeed a relatively large marine base in the East China Sea." Shanya crossed his arms and folded his arms. Although he was surprised in his heart, he still said disdainfully, "It's not bad, it's just a little bigger than the sea restaurant." Luang pinched Shanya's shoulder and grinned. "A little bigger, or a little bigger?" Shanya rolled his eyes at Luang. "Don't touch lousy." Luang. While the 4 of them were chatting, the huge marine iron door slid open slowly to the right. When the door was completely opened, Luang was stunned. He has pale hair, a burly body, a big cigar in his mouth, and a haughty look on his face. The person in front of me was actually one of the legends of Marine who had pushed Luffy to the ground and rubbed him countless times before, Colonel Smoker. But besides Smoker, there is a girl with glasses and a slightly round face. Her name is also familiar to Luang, Dasky. This is a girl who has a lot of connections with Zoro. The story is full of twists and turns, and he still has many impressions of her to this day. "Are you the one who wants to pay the criminal's reward?" Smoker crossed his arms and looked at Luang condescendingly, his eyes full of disdain. It was obvious that he looked down upon Luang in front of him. Because Luang is too young, and has no reputation at all. He doesn't look like the kind of senior bounty hunter who can kill pirates and collect bounties. Luang had already experienced this guy's temper in One Piece. He didn't care, but smiled and said, "Of course, these 3 guys are all criminals on the list, you can confirm it." Smoker glanced at Luang, and then said to Dasky, "Dasky, go and find out the identities of these 3 guys." "Yes." Dasky nodded and immediately stepped forward. Because the 3 evil dragons were dragged all the way here by Luang, their faces were always rubbing against the ground. Dasky had to struggle to turn these 3 fishmen over. When she turned over these 3 people one by one, her pretty face couldn't help but froze. Because these 3 people are actually the 3 most vicious leaders of the most notorious dragon pirates in the East China Sea. Dragon, Kruby and Chu. Although these three people were hungry and had their chests pressed against their backs, they had already become skin and bones. But Dasky, who put on glasses, still recognized their identities at a glance. Colonel Smoker, these three are the three leaders and cadres of the dragon pirates who have bounties on their heads. Their identities are confirmed. After hearing this, Smoker couldn't help but look at Luang in surprise. Boy, I don't know, you are quite capable. You can actually take down such a difficult guy. Luang smiled and said, fortunately, it's just a fluke. Facing Smoker, he naturally couldn't be too arrogant. It's not that I'm afraid, it's that I don't want to be too high profile. If you accidentally get your reputation out through Marine, how will you be able to catch pirates in the future? From the moment you step out of the East China Sea, the number of pirates you encounter will be countless times greater than the last. Being too arrogant will definitely not do any good. It's better to keep a low profile and make a lot of money in a quiet voice, which is the most reliable way. Luang's humility made Smoker feel a little better, and his arrogant and disdainful expression softened. Smoker said, my name is Smoker, I am the colonel of the Marine base in Loguetown. What is your name? Luang thought for a while and reported his name. Aruba Luang. Aruba Luang. Smoker quickly searched through various memories about this name in his mind, but found that there was no memory at all. Obviously, the man in front of me is a novice bounty hunter who has just emerged. He didn't expect that a newcomer who had just emerged would dare to fight against the most notorious dragon pirates in the East China Sea. He even took down the three most vicious people, which was very impressive. Very good, I remember you. Smoker nodded, and then said to Dasky, go to the base's treasury to withdraw the corresponding bounty. Yes, Dasky nodded, then gritted his teeth and pulled the three members of the dragon pirates slowly towards the base. Smoker blew out a smoke ring and said slowly, boy, where is your hometown? If this tone were used by an ordinary person, Luang would definitely kill him. But Smoker was obviously much older than him, and he had such a bad temper, so Luang didn't care much about it. Luang knew that Smoker wanted to know his identity. This guy was always cautious. He didn't think much and just reported his family name. I am an orphan from Windmill Village. I grew up eating hundreds of meals. As for my power, I can only keep it a secret. Speaking of this, Luang grinned. However, I can assure you that I am definitely one of the most disciplined and morally good young people in the world. Have moral integrity and moral integrity. What the hell is this? Smoker looked at Luang in confusion, and found that this guy's mind seemed a bit strange, and he couldn't catch it for a while. But so far, he didn't find anything suspicious about Luang, so he didn't ask any more questions. As a Marine general, he is obliged to investigate all suspicious people. Luang, a newly emerging young man, actually has the power to press the evil dragon to the ground and rub it, so he will naturally pay special attention to him. After all, in this era where big pirates are prevalent, any seemingly inconspicuous guy may grow into a being that affects the world in the future. Therefore, Smoker must strictly examine anyone who may bring turmoil to Marine headquarters, world government, or even the world. Even, if necessary, he might directly take action to subdue him. Because there are countless big pirates who have escaped from the East China Sea, it is because the Marine headquarters failed to take action immediately. The failure to nip those guys in the bud led to the growing threat. Soon, Dasky came over holding a black box with the word, Marine, engraved on it. There are 34.5 million Baileys here, you can count them. Okay. After Luang took the box, he quickly counted it without hesitation. Soon, his astonishing speed in counting money left everyone present stunned. He was passing by at a speed of 5 times a minute, which is 5 million. Dasky was dumbfounded, her face full of astonishment. Is this guy a natural money-counting machine? Why is he so fast? Smoker's eyes also widened in disbelief. Even the cigar in his mouth fell out of control. Luang didn't care what they thought. At this time, he was immersed in the joy of counting money crazily. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. After almost 7 minutes, Luang finally clicked the last button amidst countless pairs of wide-eyed stares. There's nothing wrong with it, Marine is really reliable in what you do. After closing the box, Luang gave a thumbs up to Dasky and Smoker. Dasky, Smoker, It's not like they have never seen a bounty hunter before, but this is the first time for Luang to be so serious and count money so quickly. Luang didn't want to either, but it was true that he had been tricked too many times. Moreover, this bounty is 10,000 baileys, enough to feed an ordinary family for a month. There was no way he could accept it casually without ordering any of it. Although the money is indeed quite easy to come by, you still have to check things that should be checked. Let's go, see you again by chance. Luang waved his hands towards Smoker and the other two, then turned and left with Nami and the other three. Looking at Luang's retreating figure, Smoker picked up a cigar again, lighting it and murmuring, "What a strange guy." Dasky nodded fiercely at this time. "Yes, it's weird, I've never seen such a guy before." At the same time, Luang, who once again received a huge sum of money, seemed extremely happy. As the saying goes, if you have food in your hands, you will not panic in your heart. This feeling of being rich makes him feel confident wherever he goes, and he feels full of security. While walking on the road, looking at the bustling streets with people coming and going, Luang suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but turn his head to look at Shinolin. "By the way, Shaolin, let me buy you a sword too. If you want to learn swordsmanship in the future, you won't be able to do it without a good sword." Hearing this, Shinolin suddenly looked happy and said, "Sir, are you ready to teach me swordsmanship?" Shinolin has been waiting for this moment for a long time. At this time, she clenched her pink fists tightly, and her little face was full of excitement. Becoming a great swordsman and a top warrior is her dream and her goal all along. Hearing what Luang said, he thought that the other party was going to teach him swordsmanship, and he was very excited. Unexpectedly, the next moment, Luang poured cold water on her. "What are you thinking about? Day by day, have you reached 1,000 pounds of strength? You want to learn swordsmanship even if you haven't reached 1,000 pounds. Are you thinking of going to heaven?" Luang rolled his eyes at Shinolin, and then continued to walk forward. "Shinolin, it costs 1,000 pounds, woohoo, then I still get the years of the monkey, the horse and the moon." After hearing these words, Shinolin became depressed. It was as if his energy were suddenly drained, and his head drooped. Upon seeing this, Nami quickly held Shinolin's little hand and comforted, "Oh, Shaolin, it's okay, isn't it just 1,000 pounds? Don't you have reached 500 pounds now? This is 100 times stronger than an ordinary man. 1,000 pounds doesn't matter to you who is so outstanding, I believe you will reach it soon." Shinolin looked at Nami and said with anxiety, "Really?" Nami clenched her fists, nodded, and encouraged, "Of course, you are the best and most talented Shaolin, let's work hard together." With Nami's comfort and encouragement, Shinolin soon regained his sunny look. Listening to the conversation between Nami and Shinolin, Luang couldn't help but smile. "Haha, you are indeed a navigator who combines beauty and wisdom. He even knows how to comfort people." At this time, Shanya suddenly shouted, "Hey, you've gone too far, the weapons store is here." Luang was stunned for a moment, then turned around and saw that a medium-sized weapons shop appeared on the left rear. There is a row of swords at the entrance of this weapons store. Judging from the appearance, they look very exquisite. Unlike the weapons store I encountered in Orangetown before, this one seems much more formal. By the way, it seems that this is where Zoro bought Yukijuru and third-generation Kidetsu. Luang looked at it for a moment, then walked over with a smile. "Since you, the future great swordsman, haven't come yet, don't blame me for stealing the chicken first." With a meaningful smile, Luang walked directly into the store. Seeing a customer coming in, the owner of the weapon shop immediately rubbed his palms and greeted him happily. "Hello guest, do you want to buy weapons?" Luang nodded, and then began to look around for the weapon he wanted. I remember Zoro seemed to be found in this corner. With a trace of expectation, Luang kept picking up swords one after another. But after searching for several barrels of swords, I still couldn't find them. Just when he found the last bucket and was almost ready to give up, he suddenly found a sword that was obviously much heavier than other swords. After looking at the rosaceous boss, Luang grinned, and then directly grabbed the sword in his hand. The shop owner trembled when he saw Luang's meaningful smile. Then he seemed to remember something and his brows jumped wildly. No, maybe he discovered the knife. The owner of the knife shop deliberately hid the knife so that customers would not find it. Because it is an ominous knife that brings bad luck. Although the store is open to make money, the store owner really doesn't want to risk the lives of his customers just to make a little money. Luang slowly raised the sword he was holding. When the ordinary-looking scabbard also appeared in the shop owner's eyes, his eyes widened. No, it won't work, this sword. The store owner rushed up without saying a word. Luang raised his lips slightly, he understood this plot very well. Before the shop owner could speak, Luang said, I know, this is a demon sword called Third Generation Ghost Blade. Hearing what Luang said, the store owner was shocked. You know this knife? He originally wanted to dissuade Luang from touching the knife, but he didn't expect Luang to recognize the knife before he took it out, which really made him unable to believe it. Luang did not comment, but directly drew his sword and stood up. In an instant, a breath as cold as second-generation Kitaru was released. But with the experience of dealing with second-generation Kitetsu, he didn't panic at all, and immediately released Conqueror's Haki, crushing him with a kingly momentum. Just 1 second passed, and third-generation Kitetsu, who was as ferocious as a devil a second ago, immediately retracted his fangs and became docile and normal in the blink of an eye. Although it's still the same sword, third-generation Ghost's hand no longer feels as threatening as before in Luang's hand. Obviously, third-generation Kitetsu has been conquered by him. Seeing this sudden change, the store owner was dumbfounded. The ordinary-looking man in front of me actually subdued this frightening and terrifying demon sword with just a few clicks of his fingers. Luang grinned and said, this demon sword seems to have been tamed by me. Shop owner. At this moment, the shop owner had a complicated heart. He never expected that this knife would one day be tamed. You know, this is a demon sword, not some messy weapon. From the time it came out to the present, every owner of the demon sword will die a violent death, and almost none of them will end well. The reason is also very simple, because the master of the demon sword is too weak and cannot restrain the demon sword, and in the end he can only be led into the world of death by the demon sword. This is why he puts the demon sword in the most remote corner, just to prevent anyone from touching it. Seeing Luang successfully taming the demon sword, he was both surprised and conflicted. What is surprising is that the demon sword can actually be tamed. The paradox is, do you really want the person in front of you to take away the demon sword? Even if it is tamed, the demon sword is still a demon sword. I know what you are worried about. Luang smiled slightly, and then showed the other second-generation ghost in his hand. When he felt the murderous aura that was no weaker than third-generation Kitetsu, and even more so, the shop owner took 3 steps back suddenly. This is second-generation Kitetsu. As the owner of a weapons store, he is also well informed and can naturally recognize the identity of the knife at a glance. What's more, this is one of the famous swords, so it is naturally more recognizable. The store owner's astonished expression was very helpful to Luang. He grinned and said, I can even tame the second-generation ghost and live well until now. What does the third-generation ghost mean? Seeing this, the store owner was finally convinced that the man in front of him was something extraordinary. Judging from his ability to tame the second-generation ghost, it is obviously not difficult to tame this third-generation ghost. Hey, forget it, since you can even tame the second-generation ghost, then the third-generation ghost is no big deal. If you want it, I can give it to you. The shop owner shook his head and said something shocking. Luang shook his head. That's not possible. You will receive no reward for no merit. I can't accept this sword from you for no reason. You can tell me how much it should cost. The shop owner laughed. Don't think that I am rich. The reason why I give it to you for free is because this knife is a burden and pressure to me. After all, it is not a good thing for me. You can take it away. To be honest, it's too late for me to be happy, so I won't charge you any money. Seeing that the store owner was so insistent, Luang couldn't say anything else. At this time, Nami suddenly pulled out a long, bright snow-silver sword. She turned it around, showing a hint of joy in her eyes. Boss, how much does this sword cost? Seeing that there was another business coming in, the store owner immediately smiled and quickly joined in. Oh my, miss, you have such a good sense. This sword is one of the most precious swords in our store. It was made by a famous craftsman. It is not said to be sharpened like clay, but it is also a treasure among weapons. If you like it, I can all sell you the discount points. Nami glanced at the boss casually. Oh, what's the price? The boss rubbed his palms in a Philistine manner and said with a grin, hey, no more, no more, the original price is 120,000 belly. If I give you a small change, I'll charge you 100,000 belly. Nami looked shocked. What? 100,000? This is too expensive. The last time I saw one exactly like yours in another town, it only cost 50,000 belly. I thought you could get it cheaper, but no. Thinking of you getting darker. Hey, forget it, forget it. After saying this, Nami shook his head and returned the sword directly to the boss. Hearing this, the store owner was stunned. The 50,000 belly is not possible. My cost is more than this price. If you like it, would you like to add more? Nami glanced at the third-generation ghost in Luang's hand, then shook his head and said, forget it, for the sake of giving our captain a famous sword, I will add 5,000 baileys, no more. Already. 5,000. The shop owner's eyes almost bulged out. He thought that if Nami added at least 10,000 to 20,000 yuan, he could still bargain for it. This is only 5,000, so you can't make any money at all. He said helplessly. Miss, this 5,000 is not enough. I am running a small business and the profit is really not as much as you think. If you do this, I will lose money to death. Nami sighed deeply. Hey, what you said makes me feel a little uncomfortable. Okay, considering how difficult it is for you, then I will add another 3,000 baileys. Quote. 3,000 baileys. The shop owner clutched his chest and felt like he could hardly take a breath. This price increase is too little, right? If he really wanted this price, he would really lose money to his grandma's family. For the first time, the store owner felt the true meaning of the words, people should not be judged by their appearance, such as the girl in front of him. It looks pretty and cute, but it's not easy at all to negotiate the price. The bidding was so fierce that he felt like his life would be cut in half. The shop owner swallowed his saliva and asked, how about, can you please add more? Nami showed a cunning look in his eyes, then gritted his teeth and continued to bargain. Afterwards, another 10 minutes or so of fierce fighting passed. In the end, Nami actually succeeded in buying the weapon for a shocking price of 65,000 belly. Watching the bargaining process, Luang and the others were stunned, dumbfounded, with disbelief on their faces. This sword is not bad. After taking out the weapon, Nami looked proud while playing with the sword in his hand. Obviously, the price made her quite satisfied. Luang and the other three secretly gave Nami a thumbs up. They never expected that Nami could actually bargain down the price to the point where the store owner wanted to kneel down. Such terrifying negotiating power is simply heaven-defying and invincible. While walking, Shinolin suddenly thought of something, and couldn't help but ask doubtfully, by the way, Nami, do you also want to learn swordsmanship? Nami gently bit her red lips, glanced at Luang, and whispered, well, I really want to learn, but... Hearing this, Shinolin couldn't help but his eyes lit up, as if he had found a treasure. Before Nami could finish speaking, he pulled her to Luang. Sir, Nami also wants to learn swordsmanship. Would you like to teach her too? Luang glanced at Nami, who was timid and shy, and couldn't help laughing. Of course you can, I'm very happy, but there are requirements for learning swordsmanship. Nami's mind tightened, and she quickly held the sword in her arms nervously. Ah. What's the request? Just this action made Nami instantly show off her surging momentum again. Luang accidentally noticed the plump white snow, his eyes widened in shock, and he coughed instantly. Ahem, what, my requirements are the same as Shinolin's. You need to reach at least 1,000 pounds in strength before I can consider teaching you swordsmanship. Nami's eyes were filled with excitement. He held his little pink fist excitedly, nodded firmly and said, okay, then, Captain, we have made an agreement. I will definitely reach 1,000 pounds to show you. Seeing this, Shinolin couldn't help but hug Nami's arms with surprise on his face. Hee, great, really great. In this way, we can learn swordsmanship together in the future. Yes, Nami nodded, with tears of joy in her eyes. She knew that from this moment on she had truly integrated into this new home. Seeing this scene, Luang felt a little warm feeling for some reason. Shanya crossed his arms and showed a rare smile at this time. At this moment, Luang suddenly remembered something and said quickly, "By the way, there is also a knife." He suddenly remembered that the owner of the weapons store seemed to have a sword in his hand. The sword's name seems to be Yukazai, and it's also Zoro's sword in the first half of One Piece. Now he no longer wants to worry about so much. He has even dug up Nami, and he is still worried about the advancement of the main plot. In this world, you make your own decisions. Setting too many limits for yourself will make it no longer fun. Now that I have the advantage of knowing the plot in advance, I would be sorry for myself if I didn't take advantage of it. Luang smiled slightly, and then said to his 3 companions, "Let's go back to the weapons store, there are still good things there." Seeing that Luang took a handful of 3rd generation and actually said such words, the other 3 couldn't help but look weird. Is this captain planning to rob the boss's weapons store? Luang didn't understand what his friends were thinking. He wanted to go to the weapons store right now. Others don't know, so how could Luang, who traveled from another world, not know? The owner of this store is dishonest. He has such a good weapon and he doesn't give it to me. Could it be that Zoro is a good swordsman, but I'm not? As Luang walked, he recalled the scene when Zoro bought weapons in this weapons store. At that time, Zoro bet his own arm and relied on his supreme courage to finally surrender to 3rd generation Kidetsu. The store owner was so shocked that he took out the snow and walked away. The reason is also very simple, that is, he thinks Zoro is a pure good swordsman, and he appreciates Zoro's courage, so he will definitely give away the snow as a gift. The scene where Zoro bets his arm is indeed amazing and touching, but he is also pretty awesome, right? He is a man with Conqueror's domineering spirit. Although it was obtained from the 4 emperors with the help of a plugin, it is still Conqueror's domineering power. For this king's power, which exists only among 1 million people, this shop owner should give himself some face. Luang shook his head helplessly. He could only blame himself for not having the halo of the protagonist. After walking a few steps, Luang returned to the weapon shop with a smile on his face again. When he saw Luang leaving and returning, the shop owner couldn't help but look surprised. Didn't this guy take away 3rd generation Ghost? Why did he come back? But surprisingly, the store owner still knows how to do business. He soon put on a very pleasing smile and walked up happily. "Mr. Swordsman, do you still want to buy weapons?" Seeing the store owner's evil smile, Luang couldn't help but shake his head. This certain Tien's painting style is really powerful, and the character's personality is completely written on his face. He glanced at the store owner and said, "Take out the treasures at the bottom of the box in your store." What? The shop owner's heart suddenly pounded. How does this guy know that I still have a treasure at the bottom of the box? So weird, so weird. Who is he? Why does he feel like he knows everything about me? The shop owner was sweating profusely, and looked at Luang with a somewhat uneasy expression. In his impression, he didn't seem to have any enemies. The shop owner swallowed his saliva and backed away nervously, as if he was worried that Luang would suddenly attack him. Seeing this scene, Luang was stunned for a moment, and then he understood. Obviously, the store owner was frightened by himself. Because from the moment I came in until now, I almost feel like I know him well. This kind of performance that is different from ordinary people, let alone him. Any ordinary person would probably be horrified and terrified. Seeing the store owner's frightened and uncertain look, Luang finally shook his head, turned around and walked out. Hey, I was too anxious. Forget it, I'll just leave this sword to Zoro. Although he really wanted to buy the snow and leave, but looking at the store owner's appearance, he would probably be scared to death if he stayed any longer. As soon as they arrived at the weapon shop, the 3 Shanya people who were about to follow the captain in couldn't help but look confused. Because they looked at Luang walking out with helplessness on his face. Shinolan asked doubtfully, "What's wrong, Captain? Don't you want to buy another weapon?" Luang waved his hand, speechless in his heart, and he really didn't want to say more about this matter. Forget it, let's go and take a walk in the town." Seeing that the captain didn't want to say more, and everyone couldn't ask any more questions, they just followed him and continued wandering around. Luang always felt it was inconvenient to carry a large amount of cash, so after thinking about it, he found a world government savings bank and deposited Bailey in it. Isn't that a casino? At this moment, Luang, who had just walked out of the savings bank, suddenly noticed a grand building opposite with a plaque of ROG Casino. This building has 7 floors, which is no less impressive than the Marine base. He originally wanted to pay homage to the execution place of One Piece, but when he saw this casino, he suddenly had an impulse. He turned to Shanya and the other 3 and said, "How about we go inside and take a look around?" Shinolin held Nami's arm, shook his head and said, "No, we are not interested in this. Nami and I just saw a few clothing stores and they seemed pretty good. We want to go there first." "Oh, okay." Luang nodded, and without saying a word, he took out a stack of cash worth about 200,000 belly and stuffed it into Shinolin's hand. "Take it, buy a few more, and pack the cosmetics and skin care products together." Seeing the extra 200,000 Baileys in his hand, Shinolin couldn't help but be stunned. She and Nami looked at each other, then hugged Bailey tightly with joy on their faces, and nodded heavily, "Well, thank you, sir." Nami also bowed her head slightly to Luang and expressed her sincere gratitude. Although it is quite easy for Luang to get money, he is the captain after all, and it is up to him to decide whether to give it or not. Being able to withdraw 200,000 Baileys at once showed that Luang really treated them as family members, which made the 2 of them happy and touched. "Let's buy some sets of clothes for the captain later. He only has 2 sets of clothes when he comes back and forth. The Kakuzu clothes are yellow." "Yeah, it's necessary." Seeing Nami chatting and smiling sideways, Luang also smiled slightly. Sure enough, shopping are a girl's nature, even in the world of One Piece, they are unavoidable. "You don't need to worry about me. I'm also going to take a look at what special ingredients are available here. I think everyone is tired of eating the ingredients on the ship." Before Luang could speak, Shanya turned around, waved his hand and left. Obviously, he had already planned it. "By the way, remember to come back to the boat for dinner at dinner time." Looking at the backs of the 3 people who were about to disappear, Luang suddenly shouted at the top of his voice. The 3 of them raised their right hands high and waved them twice in the air to show their knowledge. "Okay, then it's my entertainment time." Luang grinned and then plunged into the casino. As one of China's top 10 young men, Luang is also a well-rounded good man. Eating, drinking, whoring, gambling, and smoking. Except for the prostitution, which he didn't touch, the rest was quite fun. Of course, he still understands the truth that small amounts of gambling can make you happy, but large amounts of gambling can harm your health. Therefore, he regarded this bet more as a small game for entertainment and relaxation, rather than using it to make a fortune. After all, 9 out of 10 gambles are cheating, and this is the same everywhere. If you want to make a fortune by doing this, you will get yourself into a trap sooner or later, and there will never be any suspense. I learned a few tricks from an old bachelor in my hometown. I wonder if I can use them here. With a cunning look, Luang quickly entered the interior of the casino. After entering the casino, Luang found that it seemed to be the same as the casino in the real world. Obviously, Mautian also drew this world with reference to things in the real world. Here, there are slot machines, roulette games, poker games, baccarat, civ cup guessing and other colorful varieties. What Luang is best at is guessing the size of the civ cup. This is what he learned from the old bachelor, how to tell the size of a cup by listening to it. Whether it's difficult or not, it's all in one word, practice. As long as you are willing to calm down and practice with concentration, you can learn this skill. Luang thought it was fun at first, so he followed the old bachelor to learn it. After learning it, he did not use it as a tool to make money, but only occasionally entertained himself. Because he will never forget what the old bachelor said to him by raising his broken hand, that is, big gambling will kill you. It's fine for entertainment, but never use it to make a fortune. He won too much in the first place and was still hunted down. Even if the money he won was returned in the end, it wouldn't work. He was left with a hand forcibly, so he could save his life. The horrifying and numbing severed arm still remains in Luang's mind. Just like the real world, today Luang also came to play with an entertainment mentality. Soon he came to his best and favorite game of guessing the civ cup. Please leave now that you've made your purchase. I'm about to open a cup. As a sweet and moving voice fell, all the gamblers retracted their left and right hands sensibly. Everyone stared intently at the beautiful dealer's civ cup, their eyes full of expectations and excitement. This croupier has long pink hair, red lips, and fair skin. He wears a very professional red uniform that shows off his curvy figure to the fullest. With a charming smile on her face, she glanced at the whole place, and then slowly opened the lid of the civ cup. It's actually an extremely rare 3 sixes. Seeing this result, everyone beat their chests and feet, and immediately felt heartache, liver pain, and egg pain. It's actually 3 sixes, oh my god. I just earned a month's hard-earned money from moving bricks. If I had known, I would have beaten 3 sixes. I just had such a weird thought. Why don't you want to trust your sixth sense? Hey. A middle-aged man with his trousers rolled up and looking a little slovenly had a depressed look on his face. Looking at the 100,000 belly being slowly taken away, he stretched his hand in the air. It was as if it was his lifeblood, but he couldn't take it back. How could this happen? Woo-woo, my wife is gone, really gone. A small amount of gambling will make you happy, but a big amount of gambling will harm your health. Luang was used to seeing all kinds of life on the gambling table on TV. He shook his head and then came to the gambling table. Looking at the pretty woman in front of him, Luang raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a meaningful smile. This dealer has been winning like crazy, now it's time to pay out some interest. Chapter 31. Because Luang Chang was really ordinary, his sudden joining naturally did not attract too many people's attention. Soon, a new round of gambling began again. Like everyone else, Luang was also watching the female dealer pick up the dice cup and shake it up and down. At the moment of watching, Luang suddenly felt his mouth dry for a while. It's not that he deliberately looked at it, but this beautiful dealer is really too plump. If everyone else is a little white rabbit, then she is probably the rabbit king. The white hair on her chest actually swayed up and down with the movements of the female croupier. Many gamblers who saw it also showed excitement and flushed their faces. No, bath in fire and turn into red lotus, bath in fire and turn into red lotus. Luang closed his eyes and took a deep breath quickly. This thing is too scary. How could he, who was young and vigorous, be able to withstand such temptation? It's better to close your eyes and keep out of sight. After closing his eyes, he soon became undisturbed and his mind became clear. The dice in the shaking dice cup slowly emerged in his head, and began to appear as various points rolling around. Not long after, the female dealer stopped. The dice in Luang's mind were also in a static state. The numbers on them were 2 5s and 1 1, which was exactly the big number. The beautiful dealer stretched out her gloved hand and made a gesture of invitation to everyone. Now, please, all guests, please start placing bets. Luang calmly placed all the 100,000 chips he had just exchanged on the big characters. The 100,000 was not much, not a lot, but at the last moment, Luang, who had a strong sense of knowledge, clearly saw the slight movement of the female dealer's eyes. Fortunately, this time the people who suppressed the situation were in the minority. After making your decision, please leave quickly. As the beautiful dealer's voice fell, all the gamblers retracted their hands obediently. She glanced at everyone with a smile, and then slowly opened it. Then, the 3 dice showed 2 numbers of 5 and 1 of 1. Seeing this result, most people were stunned. Obviously, they made a wrong bet again. Luang couldn't help but grin when he saw the beautiful dealer pushing 200,000 chips to him. I'm really lucky today. Holding this stack of chips, he smiled deliberately. The people around him couldn't help but show a hint of envy when they looked at the chips he won. Soon, the second round began again. As before, Luang closed his eyes and did not look at the beautiful dealer. This guy's figure is really amazing. He is so young and energetic that he really can't control it. He can be sure that if he opens his eyes to look, he will definitely be attracted to it and will not be able to concentrate on listening to the civ cup. Soon, the dice kept rolling and showing various points again in his mind. Not long after, the sound of the sifting cup stopped again. The dice in Luang's mind also stopped at the same time. The points presented this time are 3, 5, and 1, which is obviously small. Now, distinguished guests, please start placing your bets. When the female dealer spoke, Luang calmly placed his chips on the small top. After hearing this, the others quickly took out their few chips and began to place bets with anxiety and contradiction. When the female croupier opened the lid of the cup again with a smile, the gamblers who placed big bets immediately cursed and beat their chests and feet. Woohoo, this time my coffin is also in. Why are you always pressing backwards? I've lost 10 games in a row, and I'm going to lose my pants. Looking at these people who obviously had the mentality of gamblers who want to get rich suddenly, Luang shook his head, his eyes full of pity. They really underestimate gambling. This thing is not something that just anyone can play. No matter who it is, whoever dares to put their wrong thoughts on the gambling table will never end well. In the world of gambling, there are no winners. Even the banker may die a violent death one day due to retaliation. Therefore, Luang did not feel pitiful at all about the desperate psychology of these gamblers after going crazy. Instead, he felt very sad. Relying on this unique hearing skill, Luang quickly won a lot of money. At the same time, Luang's continuous profits finally attracted the attention of the person in charge of the casino. Not long after, the female dealer was replaced. In exchange for it was an old man with a red beard, sunglasses, and a bright red leather coat. This guy. The moment he saw the old man, Luang suddenly felt a faint evil aura emanating from him. But that's not the key. The key is that he found that the old man's face gave him a very familiar feeling. Wait a minute, have I seen this guy somewhere? Luang raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the leather-clad old man calmly. Our dealer is unwell, now I, Redbeard, will serve you. Along with the sound of earn, Redbeard picked up the sieve cup with a smile. His movements were obviously more sophisticated than those of the female dealer, with a series of cool flips, throws, and rolls. In his hands, the whole sieve cup seemed to have a soul. It kept moving from his left hand to his right hand, and then from his left shoulder to his right shoulder. Everyone watching was dazzled and dazzled. Just after this guy's splendid performance, he slammed the sieve cup on the table. Come on, please place your bets now. When saying this, Redbeard looked specifically at Luang aside. It was this young man who looked ordinary and unremarkable, who won a full 10 million Baileys from their casino in less than 2 hours. This amount is not enough to break their muscles and bones, at most it is just a little more. But Luang has won dozens of games in a row, and there is no way he can continue to win, otherwise the entire casino will suffer losses. Luang could naturally feel the provocative look under the Redbeard's sunglasses, but his expression remained calm. At this time, his mind had already shown the number of the dice, which was exactly 2 6s and 1 5. Without saying a word, Luang put the money on Xiao Zhan. Although the result was great, because of his continuous winning, everyone had already regarded him as the god of gambling, and even won several games in a row with him. Luang didn't want to give others an advantage, so he suppressed Xiao. Of course, this time he only pressed 10,000 Baileys. Seeing this scene, the Redbeard couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly, showing a look of disdain. It seems like this guy is just lucky, nothing special about him. With a look of contempt, Redbeard opened the sieve cup directly. The result after Redbeard opened it was 2 6s and 1 5, which was obviously a big one. Seeing this scene, everyone collapsed instantly. Oh my god, isn't he the god of gambling? Why did he make the wrong bet this time? My coffin is back again, woo, now I'm dead and I don't even know where to bury it. I paid for moving the bricks. When you come back, don't leave. Woo, don't leave me. At this moment, a middle-aged man with slovenly clothes and rosacea suddenly grabbed Luang's collar angrily. With his mouth full of the stench of alcohol, he yelled, God of gamblers, no, you bad gambler, you pay my money and my coffin book. Regarding this scene, Luang looked calm and just slowly stretched out his finger and flicked the drunkard's head. Wow! With a scream, the old drunkard instantly suffered a bloody head injury and flew backwards. Looking at the old drunkard who was carried out by the casino's security personnel in a blink of an eye, Luang sighed softly. Luang would not show any mercy to people who regard gambling as their entire life. He only hopes that this finger can completely wake up the old drunkard and understand that this gambling city is not a place for people like him. Luang turned his head and continued to look at Redbeard, who had restarted the second round of gambling. He looked at Redbeard. The more he looked, the more puzzled he became. It's strange, why do I feel so familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen this guy. He was certain that he had never seen the other person in any town, but the other person felt extremely familiar to him. Soon, Redbeard rolled the dice again. Just like last time, although Lu Wang saw the result, he still chose the opposite direction. Those gamblers who wanted to follow him to steal the chicken were soon slapped hard by reality. After 2 consecutive defeats, everyone began to no longer believe in Lu Wang. They all felt that this god of gambling had completely lost his luck, and they had to bet on the opposite of him to win. With this mentality, as expected, these people quickly won several more games in a row. At the same time, Lu Wang lost several games in a row, but he still looked indifferent. After losing 9 games in a row, even Redbeard looked at Lu Wang with a hint of contempt and disdain. Obviously, this guy is invincible due to pure luck, and now that his luck is gone, it doesn't matter anymore. Hehe, all of you are leaks. No matter if you are lucky, as long as your desire does not stop, as long as you want to win more, sooner or later you will spit it out. Looking at the gamblers who had already turned red from gambling, the boss with a red beard and a grin on his face started to get into a winning state. Haha, it feels so good to win, but it's a pity that I won't give up this time. Seeing that the dice that appeared in his mind turned out to be 3 5s, Lu Wang couldn't help but grin. After seeing everyone bet big and small, he put all his chips directly on the leopard without saying a word. Forget it, let's just bet on this. If you win, you'll get rich, if you lose, you'll walk away naked. After placing the bet, Lu Wang clapped his hands and looked like Lousy had made a bad choice. All the gamblers couldn't help but laugh when they saw that Lu Wang, who had lost 9 games in a row, was actually on the leopard. Ha ha ha, look at it, he's anxious, it seems like he's really lost, and he's stupid enough to crush the leopard. TCH, you are still a god of gamblers. With such a hot-headed look, you will definitely lose in a blink of an eye. I really want to be rich and want to be crazy, and I am still a leopard. Haha, I can guarantee you, Lousy, this guy will lose immediately and even lose his pants. Unlike these gamblers, seeing Lu Wang's bet, Redbeard's expression changed visibly. He looked at Lu Wang with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. We must not let this guy walk out of the casino alive. Then, he slowly opened the sieve cup. At this moment, an idea suddenly flashed in Lu Wang's mind. He finally remembered where he had seen the Redbeard in front of him. That's the murderer Luca from the Pirate Bounty show. Although Redbeard's beard is dense and lush, covering less than half of his face, his unique wind-catching ears and a black mole under his sunglasses are exactly the same as the description in the bounty catalog. Coupled with the vague evil aura, Lu Wang was even more convinced that the guy in front of him was the murderer Luca who had disappeared for decades. No wonder no one can find it. It turns out he is hiding here as a croupier. Tisk tisk. This is really hard to find. It takes no effort at all to get here. The moment he sensed Luca's murderous intent, Lu Wang also showed a cold look in his eyes. The two of them have their own thoughts at this moment. As Luca reluctantly picked up the sieve cup, 3 5s also appeared in front of everyone. In an instant, everyone was dumbfounded. They who were mocking Lu Wang 1 second ago were slapped hard this second. Oh my god, leopard, he really crushed the leopard. He pressed a total of 10 million Baileys. According to the leopard's return rules, that's 36 times, or 360 million. It's going to happen, he's going to make it, he's really the god of gamblers. Everyone stared at Lu Wang's 10 million chips with jealousy, and everyone's intestines were filled with regret. They were mocking Lu Wang just now, but they didn't expect that this second they would become the other party to be mocked. If only I could believe in the god of gambling again, just this one, wouldn't everything come back, and I might even become rich overnight. Lu Wang spread his hands, made a very Versailles gesture, and said, it seems that this great goddess of fate doesn't want me to lose. Hey, there is nothing I can do about this person's overwhelming luck. This look of showing the spirit of Versailles to the extreme made everyone present want to beat Lu Wang up. But thinking about the scene where Lu Wang kicked an old drunkard with just one finger not long ago, this impulse that made everyone feel indignant disappeared completely in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Redbeard suddenly said, Dear guest, you are very lucky today. First of all, congratulations on winning 360 million Bailey's chips, but there is currently not enough cash in the casino. I'll take you directly to the savings bank to collect it, what do you think? Lu Ang glanced at Redbeard, smiled meaningfully, and said, of course. Afterwards, Lu Ang exchanged the 10 million chips in his hand for cash, and followed Redbeard towards the savings bank. Along the way, Redbeard remained silent, but walked toward increasingly remote places. Lu Ang also understood this and followed without saying a word. Originally, the savings bank was at the door, but Redbeard pretended not to know. He led Lu Ang through many twists and turns until he reached a sparsely populated dead end with no way to go before he stopped. Looking at the Redbeard who slowly turned around after reaching the end, Lu Ang showed a smile. He knew from the moment Redbeard avoided the savings bank opposite that this guy must be full of evil, and it turned out to be true. He really wants to kill himself. This guy has such a dark heart. But Lu Ang, who already knew everything in his heart, still pretended to be a newbie at this time, and said with a puzzled face, "Hey, uncle, didn't you want to take me to the savings bank? Why did you bring me here?" "Hee, yes, we will arrive at the savings bank soon, but you have to walk the rest of the way by yourself." With a sinister sneer, Redbeard turned his right hand and pulled out a scarlet short sword from nowhere. Seeing Redbeard showing his knife, Lu Ang stopped pretending to be stupid. He said, "Murder Luca, your temperament is indeed in line with the style of a murderer, but..." Speaking of this, Lu Ang tapped his shoulders lightly with the two demon knives in his hand, and grinned, "Do you think I look good when I carry these two knives? Are you from Marine?" After hearing Lu Ang call out his name accurately, Luca's expression suddenly changed. He quickly shook his beard and looked nervously up and down and left and right. Lu Ang said, "Don't look, I'm not from Marine, and there's no one else here except me." While talking, Lu Ang also yawned. He continued, "Okay, if you want to do it, hurry up, I have to go back and play 2 rounds. Luca observed again and again, and he was relieved when he was sure that there was only the stupid young queen in front of him. "Oh, since you are the only one, then, just accept death." When the word, death, fell, Luca slashed it with his sword without saying a word. In an instant, a bloody slash struck Lu Ang quickly like a demon craving for people. Seeing this vicious slash, Lu Ang raised his eyebrows, his right hand turned black, and he raised it instantly. In an extremely dangerous moment, he withstood the blood-red slash. But he was also pushed back a big step by this slash. Armed and domineering, you actually know how to be domineering. Seeing this scene, Redbeard was stunned. Others may not know it, but he knows it very well. On the road to the Great Channel, there are countless strong men who understand, even Grandmaster domineering. Each of these strong men is one of a kind. Even if you don't have the power of devil fruit, you can still use your super domineering power to carve out your own territory on the Great Channel. As a murderer, he once met a Marine who knew how to be domineering, and was immediately beaten to a pulp and almost caught. From then on, whenever he encountered Marine, he could hide away. It's not that he's afraid of Marine, it's that he's afraid of meeting another domineering strong Marine. When he was beaten all the way, he was left with a shadow. Now, this shadow appears again from an ordinary young man. This makes Luca not afraid, nervous, or frightened. Lu Ang turned his slightly numb wrist. Although he had received the slash just now, the force of the rebound still made him feel a little uncomfortable. "It seems that I can't show off in the future. This slash can be countered with Conqueror's entanglement, just use Conqueror's, or just dodge, or respond with the same slash. The backlash brought by simply armed color is really too much to bear." Hearing Luca's surprised words, Lu Ang looked calm, as if the old god was there. He said calmly, "It's not normal to be domineering. There's nothing surprising about it. Compared to this, I think you should just let it go, because it's really painful for me to hit someone. HMPH, I am a powerful murderer in the East China Sea. Even if I die, I will never surrender on my knees." Hearing the words, "Take it easy," Luca seemed very angry, and without saying a word, he swung the second slash again. Immediately afterwards, he rushed towards Lu Ang like lightning. Conqueror's entanglement. Lu Ang's expression changed, and Conqueror's domineering energy burst out in an instant, and it directly attached to his right hand. Before the blood-red slash came, he came first and punched it directly. The blood-red slash that was enough to make him retreat was instantly wiped out by Conqueror's domineering angry fist counterattack. At the same time, Luang also stepped towards Luca expressionlessly. Bloodbird. Luca's eyes were blood-red, and he struck Luang with a more powerful and terrifying blow. Luca, who has a bounty of 50 million, is also a famous swordsman himself, so his slashes are naturally extraordinary. But, no matter how powerful he is, he can't be stronger than Luang at this moment. As he struck down the blood-red short sword, a ferocious and terrifying blood-red giant bird also rushed toward Luang. Forget it, although you are quite weak, let's use you to help second-generation Kidetsu. Luang sighed, and at the moment when the blood-red giant bird struck, he slowly pulled out the second-generation ghost. In an instant, a terrifying chill swept out. It was as if hell had descended, causing the world within 100 meters to suddenly cool down. Luca's eyes widened and he shuddered uncontrollably. The next second, he saw a scene that he could never forget in his life and would never forget again. A bloody storm. With a cold groan, Luang pulled up Gui Che, and then gently swung it down towards the void. Immediately, a vast blood-red tornado, with blood rain all over the sky, suddenly swept out of the ghost blade. The moment the blood-red giant bird hit the blood-red tornado, it was crushed to pieces without any trace left. The next second, the blood-red tornado continued to wreak havoc toward Luca unabated. What was originally a dead end that left Luang with no way to escape, in this second, turned into a dead end with no way for Luca to retreat. He ran back crazily, all the way to the end, until the moment he could no longer retreat, he suddenly screamed. Oh no! The blood-red tornado and the terrifying blood-red rain showed no mercy and went straight towards him. Soon, Luca was cut into pieces by endless tornadoes as sharp as swords. His flesh and blood were dripping with blood, and he was extremely miserable. At the gate of the Marine base in Loguetown, after hearing the report from his subordinates, Smoker took Dusky out again. Looking at Luca, who was covered in blood and flesh, Smoker, who was holding 2 cigars, couldn't help but look confused. He glanced at Luang and said, "Who is this guy?" Luang smiled slightly, and then said a name that shocked everyone present. The murderer Luca. The murderer Luca. The moment he heard the name, Smoker was stunned for a moment, and then showed a hint of anger. Luang, are you kidding me? That old guy is much older than me, how can he still be alive? Dasky also couldn't believe it, because this murderer was a veteran East China Sea pirate of the same era as Roger. He had already offered a reward of 50 million back then. With his current strength, if he really showed up again, it would probably rise to hundreds of millions. The reason why the world government has not withdrawn his reward is because there is no definite information proving that the murderer is dead. Because according to an internal rule set by the world government itself, unless the pirate for whom the bounty is placed is dead or captured. Otherwise, the bounty cannot be easily removed. This is a responsibility to the world and all the civilians who have suffered greatly. Luang was not surprised at all by the expressions of these 2 people. To be honest, even he was surprised when he recognized it at first. Because he didn't expect that this great pirate from the East China Sea, who had disappeared for decades, was still alive and appeared in the gambling city of Loguetown. If he hadn't gone through many comparisons and repeated confirmations, he wouldn't have believed his eyes. Luang shrugged and said, "Nu, you 2 will check it out and you will know." Smoker crossed his arms and looked at Luang suspiciously. Dasky, keep your eyes open and compare carefully. Don't let others fool you. Yes, Dasky nodded, squatted down quickly, and turned over Luca, who was lying on the ground and dying. As a young general of Marine, Dasky has already memorized the faces and characteristics of all the criminals in the entire pirate bounty catalog. Even if it is a criminal from decades ago, she will not admit his mistake. Dasky first carefully took off Luca's sunglasses, looked at his facial features, and then looked at the knife in his hand. After about 10 minutes of repeated confirmation, Dasky took a deep breath. Report to Colonel Smoker, this man. Dasky gritted his teeth, glanced at Luang in disbelief, and then said, "It is indeed the disappeared murderer Luca." Wah! What? Smoker's eyes widened, his mouth opened, and the 2 cigars originally held in his mouth fell down again. Are you sure you read it correctly? This old guy is much older than me. Even at this moment, Smoker still couldn't believe it. Because in the entire Marine department, not just him, almost everyone believed that Luca must have been killed long ago, or died of old age. How could Luca, such an arrogant, and domineering person, disappear just by saying he would disappear? Judging from his character, it is impossible for him to be content with the status quo and become invisible. No one knew that Luca cowered in fear because he faced a strong Marine. Therefore, even if a living murderer appeared in front of Smoker, it would still be difficult for him to believe it. Dasky looked solemn and immediately saluted. Colonel, you can personally confirm that his facial features are exactly the same as the murderer Luca, exactly. I can take full responsibility for the identification I made. Smoker glanced at Dusky, then fell silent. He knows this subordinate very well. Although his strength may be average, he is extremely cautious and meticulous in doing things and never makes mistakes. Since Dasky dares to say this, it means that the big red-bearded guy in front of him is probably a real murderer. No need, I believe you. Smoker raised his head and looked at Luang, and said slowly, I really want to know how you killed him. This guy's swordsmanship is ranked among the best even in Marine. He is by no means a casual person. It can be done. This old fox wants to test me again. Luang was speechless. He didn't expect Smoker to be more wary of him every time. I had killed a second pirate in front of him, and he was still a more powerful pirate. Can't I explain my position? He thought for a while and said, it's very simple, just use the sword on this shoulder to kill him. Smoker glanced at the two swords with scabbards on Luang's shoulders. Oh, can you show me your swords? Sorry for the inconvenience. Luang shook his head and decisively refused. Even if he becomes famous in the future, that will be in the future. At least he doesn't want to be too showy right now, even if he just shows Smoker his sword. Others may not know it, but as a fan of Pi, he knows very well the urinary nature of the world government in the world of One Piece. If there are any clues that Marine knows about, all of his information will be known to the entire Marine government in the next second. There are no exceptions to this. Now he still wants to keep a low profile and catch criminals quietly. Let's talk about becoming famous later. Smoker and Luang looked at each other for a few seconds. Seeing that Luang was always smiling and unyielding, he finally chose to give up. As a Marine, it was naturally impossible for him to offend a powerful bounty hunter out of curiosity. Smoker took out another cigar, lit it with a lighter, and said, Dasi Chi, go and collect the bounty and come out. Yes, Dusky nodded, and then dragged the murderer's body towards the Marine base again. Not long after Dasky walked in, Smoker blew out smoke rings and said casually to Luang, by the way, where did you learn swordsmanship? You should be able to tell me this. Luang touched his chin, looked at Smoker's old fox-like eyes, and grinned, I say he is self-taught, do you believe it? Smoker shook his head, no way. In the world of One Piece, there are people who can be self-taught, but they are almost rare. Moreover, self-taught swordsmen who can become world-famous are extremely rare. Smoker didn't believe that the ordinary-looking man in front of him was one of the rare ones. This kind of unique genius is not a common commodity, and it is impossible to encounter it just by chance. You actually saw through it. Hey, forget it, since you want to know, then I'll tell you. Luang took a deep breath, with a look of helplessness on his face. He slowly raised his head and looked at Smoker extremely seriously. Then, in an extremely solemn, and extremely solemn tone, he slowly said, actually, I am really self-taught. Smoker. If it weren't for the fear of bad influence, Smoker at this moment really wanted to give Luang a good beating. This guy is really too mean and cunning. He has seen slippery ones, but never such slippery ones. Snort. Smoker was so angry that he had nothing to say, so he could only snort to express his disdain. At this moment, Dasky also ran over holding a big box. Seeing her running out of breath, Luang couldn't help but be stunned. Because, he clearly and uncontrollably set his eyes on the pink and white snow on the opposite side. It doesn't seem big. Dasky was stunned for a moment. What's not big? Luang's expression froze, and he quickly changed his vocabulary and said, no, I mean this box doesn't look like there are many. Dasky didn't notice Luang's gaze. Hearing this, he quickly raised it and said, you will know after you open it and check it. There is nothing wrong. Oh. Lu Ang nodded and then took the box. When I opened it, I saw that there were 25 handfuls of Bailey's cash neatly placed, and each handful contained 2 stacks of 100 banknotes. A simple calculation is 50 million Baileys. Okay, then you wait a moment and I'll take a look. After taking the box, Lu Ang immediately started the crazy money counting mode. With Smoker and Dasky looking in disbelief, Lu Ang began to click stack after stack at a crazy rate. Lu Ang kept picking up, putting down, picking up, putting down, picking up again, and putting down again at a crazy speed of 5 stacks per minute. After a full 10 minutes, he finally ordered the last one. He slowly put it down in front of 2 pairs of staring eyes, and then closed the box. As expected, Marine is trustworthy. It's just 50 million, no more and no less. It's a pleasure to cooperate with you. See you next time. After Lu Ang gave a standard polite smile, he immediately turned around and left, not leaving even half a word of chatter for Smoker. Looking at Lu Ang's leaving figure, Smoker dropped the cigar from the corner of his mouth again. Is this guy really a bounty hunter? The corners of Dasky's mouth twitched. Yes, it should be, right. Lu Ang, who easily received 50 million Baileys, was in a great mood and felt like he was about to take off when he walked. He even hummed happily, "Who brought you to me?" It was the round bright moon, the bright moon. He sang ecstatically as he walked all the way to the savings bank. The staff at the savings bank were dumbfounded when they saw that Lu Ang, who had just arrived a few hours ago, had brought a box of large amounts of cash. Could this guy be the god of gamblers? Even the god of gamblers doesn't play like this, right? It had only been a few hours, and in the blink of an eye, another 50 million belly came over. I'm afraid the money printing machine wouldn't dare to print like this. However, in line with the principle that the distinguished guest is God and the uncle, the staff of the savings bank politely handled the savings business for Lu Ang. Sitting in the lobby of the savings bank, Lu Ang was served snacks and coffee, and was served comfortably. It would be great if, in reality, I had so many grandpas, and I would probably be treated like an uncle by the bank staff. At this moment, a very sweet-looking woman wearing a cheongsam suddenly walked over. Dear Mr. Lu Ang, our bank has launched an exclusive super VIP service for distinguished guests like you. Here is the service manual. Do you want us to provide it for you? After taking a look at the plump woman, Lu Ang nodded slightly and said, "Okay, let me take a look." Then he took it over. Soon he saw a series of service items in the service manual, such as God's hand massage, island dream, reaching the sky in one day, wandering to the end of the world, suffocatingly sweet, dreaming back for thousands of years, and the fairy bath, what singing and dancing can elevate people to equal status, and so on. Behind these projects there are some corresponding simple concerns. To put it bluntly, they are a series of various healthcare and entertainment services. After reading it, Lu Ang couldn't help but marvel. This certain Tien is so good at playing, he actually moved all the things from the island country into it. It seems that his daily life must be colorful and interesting. After reading it once, Lu Ang couldn't help pinching his chin, squinting at the woman and saying, "Are you a serious savings bank?" The plump woman knelt down half kneeling, nodded to Lu Ang and said with a smile, "Of course, we are the only savings bank of the world government. We cannot always be absolutely safe." Lu Ang. The erroneous response made Lu Ang feel a little tired. He glanced at the staff who were still counting money frantically, thought for a while and said, "Then give me this magic hand massage, I just want to relax." The plump woman nodded. "Okay, distinguished guest, please wait a moment." Not long after, a blonde girl who was also wearing a cheongsam and looked a little shy walked out of it with her mouth biting in her mouth. "Sir, I am here to provide you with divine hand massage service. My name is Yinruka Ziva." "Oh well," Lu Ang nodded, but then he felt something was wrong. He looked up and his eyes widened instantly. Isn't this child labor? Shuiwa, who was about to massage Lu Ang's shoulders and neck, saw this scene and was so frightened that she quickly bowed and apologized repeatedly. "Ah, sir, I'm sorry, did Shuiwa do something bad?" I'm sorry, don't be angry." Seeing this scene, the plump woman who left earlier couldn't help but walk out with a dark face. "You useless piece of trash, you can't even serve a customer well, what's the point of raising you?" As the plump woman spoke, She raised her hand to strike, but was caught by Luang. Luang glanced at the plump woman coldly and said, "Okay, does a mere little girl need to be so cruel?" The plump woman smiled and said, "Haha, sir, don't worry about it. This little trash has lost her parents since she was a child. It was the boss of our savings bank who picked her up because she felt sorry for her. It was us who taught her well that she bumped into you. Don't be angry. I'll teach you a lesson right now." Seeing that this woman actually wanted to continue fighting, Luang finally couldn't stand it anymore. "Enough." An angry shout, with a hint of chill, instantly scared the woman away. The domineering Luang's angry shouts were naturally full of majesty. How could this woman withstand it? She immediately turned pale and began to tremble. Why does this guy look so much like her? At this time, Luang suddenly noticed the little girl's face, and couldn't help but look a little surprised. Correct. Luang, who was about to have a headache, suddenly had a flash of inspiration and immediately punched his palms. "You can leave it to Dusichi. This guy is very kind-hearted. It will definitely not be a big problem for her to bring this little girl into Marine." He wanted to take the little girl on board, but the problem was that it was quite dangerous to travel around by himself and often hunt pirates. The little girl has no ability to protect herself by her side, so she might as well send her to Marine. At the Marine base, not only will you not go hungry, but you will also be able to practice your skills. Even if she leaves Marine in the future, she can survive on her own. Just do it. Luang took out a stack of Baileys worth 1 million and stuffed them into the woman without saying a word. "I'll give you this 1,000,000 Baileys and give this little guy to me, okay?" Seeing a stack of millions of Baileys placed in the palm of her hand, the plump woman couldn't help but widen her beautiful eyes, like a bull's eye. She swallowed her saliva, nodded and said, "Yes, yes." With so much money, even if she worked diligently for 5 years, she might not be able to save so much. As for the little girl, their savings bank only raised her for a few years, and they couldn't spend much money on it. They even used Shuewa to earn a lot of repeat customers. Therefore, the savings bank made a huge profit from this transaction. After half an hour passed, all 50 million Baileys were deposited into Luang's exclusive savings card. Then Luang pulled the confused Shuewa out of the savings bank. After walking out of the savings bank, Luang squatted down and gently wiped the tears that the little girl had just shed out of fear. "Good boy, don't be afraid. Big brother is not a bad person. Now I want to take you to a good place. Can you come with me?" Shuewa bit her small mouth, hesitated for a while, and then nodded nervously. The reason Luang finally made this decision was not because he temporarily had the heart of the Holy Mother. But he found that this girl was too similar to his sister when she was a child. The only difference is that this little girl's hair is blonde. Even if it wasn't because of the little girl's life experience, because of her face, Luang couldn't ignore her. Seeing Shuewa nodding in agreement, Luang reached out and gently touched her little head, "Then come with me." Walking on the street, Shuewa was like a curious baby, constantly looking at the various scenery in all directions, the various people coming and going, as well as the various street shops, stalls and hawkers. It was as if a new world had opened up, and those beautiful eyes were full of curiosity and excitement. Not long after, Shuewa had a huge colorful lollipop in her hand. Obviously, Luang bought this for her. He was not blind, so he could naturally see Shuewa's eyes that had barely seen the world. Isn't this guy always locked up in the savings bank and providing those bullshit special services to customers? Luang spat and suddenly felt that this so-called savings bank was not a good place. Soon, he came to the Marine base again. When Smoker and Dasky saw Luang reappearing with a little girl, they couldn't help but be stunned. Smoker looked at Luang with a cold face and said, "What are you going to do?" Luang grinned and said, "This guy wants to be a Marine, will you accept him?" On the way here, Luang was already angry with Shuewa. He told Shuewa that if she wants not to be bullied, she must become strong enough. Although Shuewa still doesn't understand what it means to be strong, she knows that she doesn't want to be bullied all the time. Therefore, he quickly obeyed Luang's words. Smoker said angrily, "Are you kidding me? Do you think our Marine is just kids pretending to be a little kid, a place for fun?" Hearing Smoker's fierce look, Shuewa was frightened and hid behind Luang. Hey, I always thought that the justice advocated by Marine of World Government was real justice, but now it seems that it is nothing more than that. Lu Wang said, shook his head, and said directly to Shui Hua, little guy, remember, world government is not a good place. We will have to go around it when we grow up. Do you understand? Smoker. At this moment, Smoker was really filled with anger. He clenched his fists and took steps, ready to step forward and beat Lu Wang violently. At the critical moment, Dasky quickly grabbed Smoker. Colonel Smoker, no, we Marine cannot attack civilians casually, otherwise we will be punished. Smoker was so angry that he roared. Didn't you hear what nonsense this kid was talking about? Lu Wang turned his head, glanced at Smoker, and said, isn't it? You claim to be righteous and the protector of civilians. Now a little girl in trouble wants to seek your asylum and join you, but you turn a blind eye. Isn't this just deceiving people under the guise of justice? Hearing this, both Smoker and Dasky fell silent. Smoker glanced at Dasky, then turned and left without saying a word. Dasky was stunned for a moment, then showed a hint of joy in her eyes, and walked towards Shui Hua without saying a word. Little sister, do you really want to join Marine? Dasky obviously has an innate affinity, and her gentle tone instantly lowered Shui Hua's alertness by half. She looked at Lu Wang, then at Dasky, and then said in a low voice, Big Brother said, that you Marines have food and won't starve, so I. Hearing this, Dasky couldn't help but rolled her eyes at Lu Wang angrily. The meaning is obvious, you are really a child. But the dissatisfaction is gone, and Dasky obviously has a certain fondness for Shui Hua. Not to mention the big watery eyes, the little baby face is very cute and lovable. The look in Smoker's eyes just now also revealed a meaning to her, that is, it is up to you to handle this matter. If you like it, stay, if you don't like it, leave. Dasky pushed up her somewhat loose glasses, nodded and said, well, Big Brother didn't lie to you. You won't go hungry if you join Marine, but you also have to work if you join Marine, and it won't be easy, are you sure? Hearing these words, Shui Hua's eyes lit up, she immediately clenched her two little fists hard, shook her head and said, Shui Hua is not afraid, Shui Hua can endure hardship, as long as she has food to eat. Hearing these words, both Dasky and Lu Wang felt sour in their hearts. As long as there is food to eat, it will be fine, no matter how hard you suffer. What the hell did he go through before he could say such heart-wrenching words? Dasky wiped away a tear that was so sad. She smiled and nodded and said, okay, in that case, my sister will take you to join Marine today. Big Brother, goodbye. Shui Hua, goodbye. Lu Wang waved to the little girl who kept waving goodbye to him, with a trace of emotion in his eyes. He never expected that he would meet someone who looked so similar to his sister. This really surprised him. However, this may also be the reason why God arranged for the two of them to meet. I hope there will be a chance to meet again in the future, so work hard, Shui Hua. Looking at the closed door, Lu Wang smiled slightly, then turned and left. After that, he went to Loguetown and walked around alone. He loved delicious food and soon had his hands filled with piles of skewers. Oh, this is so spicy. Lu Wang took a bite of the spicy squid barbecue and screamed happily all the way to the place where One Piece Roger was once executed. There is a long-standing saying in Loguetown, that is, if you come to Loguetown and don't go to the place of execution, it's like coming to Loguetown in vain. As a loyal fan of One Piece, Lu Wang naturally cannot miss this tourist attraction that once made the whole world a sensation. Walking to the high execution platform, I looked at the iron frame of Madara that was rusty due to the erosion of rain and the baptism of time. Lu Wang didn't say a word, just kept putting roasted meat into his mouth one bite at a time. Although a long time had passed, standing here, he seemed to still be able to vaguely feel the scene when Roger was executed. On the high execution platform, Roger sat cross-legged with a heroic and fearless smile. At the last moment, he laughed and said to everyone, "Do you want Lousy's treasure? Then go and get it." Well, I put everything there. A very simple sentence, but it directly brought out an era of pirates. What a domineering and handsome ending this is. Such a hero, such a legendary figure, and a being who was admired by many powerful Marines, was left alone like this. At that moment, many people must have felt sorry for it, regretted it, and even sighed. After all, There are not many big pirates who can compete with the marine government. Sure enough, he is indeed a great hero who influenced an era. Even if I stand here now, I can still feel a trace of the unruly atmosphere that has been remembered by time and left traces of time. Lu Ang stood there for a long time and never left. Friend, are you here to remember this execution platform too? At this moment, a man wearing a black robe and a hat suddenly came to Lu Ang's side. Lu Ang said with a smile, "Haha, that's right. After all, he was a superhero who amazed an entire era. Who wouldn't feel sad if he left like this?" The man in black robe smiled and said, "Hey, you were right, he is indeed a superhero. If he is not terminally ill, it would be a daydream to catch him with the help of incompetent people like Marine." Hearing this voice, Lu Ang was suddenly stunned. Strange, why do I feel like I have seen each other before? He thought to himself, looking sideways, and immediately saw the face of a middle-aged man with strange lines and a rough face. The moment he saw this face, Lu Ang was stunned. Isn't this Luffy's father, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dragon, who makes the world government tremble and make him uneasy? Long Mew smiled. I've always judged people very accurately. There will definitely be a place for you in the great waterway world of the future. Lu Ang's eyes showed a strange look. Oh, are you so sure? I am just an ordinary person. At this moment, Long suddenly opened his mouth, revealing his snow-white teeth. Are you ordinary? I don't think someone who can kill a murderer in one move is ordinary, ha 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 ha. Following this burst of laughter, a violent gust of wind suddenly struck out of thin air. The dragon's figure disappeared into the strong wind at this moment, but his voice still echoed. Brother, we will meet one day again, so look forward to it. Ha 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 ha. Following this wild and domineering laughter, the sudden gust of wind finally slowly disappeared, and the dragon completely disappeared. This guy is indeed the same as what we saw in the original plot. He is extremely mysterious and unfathomable. Looking at the sky that had returned to clearness in a blink of an eye, Lu Ang frowned slightly. For some reason, he seemed to feel seen through at that moment. But think about it, I am a person who has traveled through time. No matter how powerful this dragon is, it is just a character in the world of One Piece. The two of them were not in the same dimension from the beginning, and it was impossible for him to guess his identity without any clues. Lu Ang shook his head, continued to nibble on the skewers in his hand, and walked slowly back towards his big ship. It's getting dark already. If we don't leave, we won't be able to catch dinner. When Lu Ang walked back to the boat, he found that Nami and the other three had gone home long ago. As soon as he walked into the cabin, he smelled an extremely strong fragrance. Although, this smells so fragrant and strong. Although he ate snacks along the way, the moment he smelled this smell, Lu Ang suddenly had a huge appetite again. After he quickly destroyed the food in his hand, he quickly went down the ladder of the cabin and quickly returned to the exclusive restaurant. At this time, Nami was busy helping Shanya bring plate after plate of delicious food. Among them, a strange stew pot was placed in the center of the dining table. Lu Ang walked in and saw that the stew pot was actually filled with countless high-quality ingredients that he knew and didn't know. There were abalone, ginseng, wild boar, lobster, corn, and many other ingredients that he had never even seen. The rich and tantalizing flavor just now wafted out from this stew pot. Why does this thing seem so familiar? After looking at it for a few times, Lu Ang suddenly slapped his palms. Isn't this the Buddha jumping over the wall that I saw when we were having dinner in my hometown? Where did this guy get this stew pot, and where did he learn this trick? Lu Ang admires Shanya more and more. This guy looks so small that he can pick it up with one hand, but he actually knows everything. Sure enough, Sanji was right, this guy's cooking skills are no longer inferior to his. Tisk, tisk, I'm such a good character, I accidentally picked up such a big treasure. Thinking of this, Lu Ang couldn't help but praise his wit and character. If I hadn't suddenly thought of a sea restaurant, I wouldn't have met such a good partner. It is impossible to eat different delicious food every day like now. Shanya's culinary attainments can be said to have surpassed countless senior chefs. Hey, let me take a bite of him first. Lu Ang's eyes showed a little excitement, and he quickly picked up the spoon, preparing to secretly take a few bites for himself. Captain, what are you doing? Just when Luang was about to put the spoon into the orange stew pot and prepare to secretly take a bite, Nami's voice sounded. At this moment, his hands and people couldn't help but stop. For a moment, a strong embarrassment arose spontaneously. Luang, ahem, no, it's okay. I just want to see how this thing is made, hee hee. Cut. With a sound of disdain, Shanya walked out carrying a big fish that had just been grilled and filled with various seasonings. He placed the grilled fish with the same fragrant aroma on the table and glanced at Luang with disdain. Don't come here. I heard your footsteps in the kitchen trying to eat secretly. Do you think I don't know? Luang. He glanced at Shanya and found that this guy was not afraid at all and even raised his chin slightly. That proud look seems to be saying, yes, I know you so well, but I don't want to give you face. If you have the ability, come and beat me. This guy is as shameless as ever. Luang cursed in his heart, but he couldn't get angry at all. There is nothing I can do, this is my partner, even if I am depressed, I have to suffer by myself. What's more, it was only after he asked Sanji that Sanji handed it over to him. It's okay to quarrel with each other, but if you really do it, you're not a human being. Shanya said. Go and wash your hands, don't bring the bacteria from outside back to the ship. Luang. Oh. Although the boss was a little unhappy, Luang still went there obediently. As Shanya said, you really shouldn't take things like washing your hands casually. After all, food must be eaten in the stomach. Washing your hands frequently is good for your health. After Luang relaxed a little comfortably, he quickly washed his hands several times. He thought of the murderer he killed not long ago, shook his head, and washed it a few more times. Soon, he returned to the dining table and Nami and the three of them started eating happily. I have to say that Shanya's craftsmanship is really impeccable. Not to mention those big dishes with attractive colors and fragrant aromas. Let's take the simplest stir-fried mountain vegetables as an example. He can bring out the earthy flavor of this mountain vegetable without leaving any trace behind. Moreover, while the earthy taste is removed, the unique mountain flavor of mountain vegetables can be retained. Every bite seems to be biting on the breath of green water and green mountains, which makes people have endless aftertaste and praise. Obviously, Shanya has truly grasped the essence of red-footed Tetsuo's culinary skills. In addition, what moved Luang most about this meal was the way the Buddha jumped over the wall. He never expected that Shanya would be able to do this after walking around Loguetown and coming back. I don't know where he learned it, but he made this delicious food to the fullest, making it extremely authentic and delicious. Wow, this soup is really great. I have never tasted such a delicious soup. It feels like my tongue is going to eat it. Nami's face turned red and she drank very happily. While serving herself the third bowl of Buddha jumping over the wall, she gave Shanya a thumbs up and admired it. Shinolan swallowed a mouthful of rice, then shook his cute little head, eating very happily as well. She glanced at Nami and said proudly, of course, this is the little chef we dug out from the sea restaurant with great difficulty. Sea restaurant? Nami looked surprised. Wow, it is said that the best chefs in the East China Sea come from there. Is Shanya the same? At this moment, her eyes looking at Shanya suddenly became brilliant, and her face was full of surprise. Shanya's face turned a little red and nodded slightly. Obviously, he, who has always been very arrogant, can't bear the continuous compliments from others, and he is actually a little shy. Can this stinky guy actually be shy? Tisk tisk. Luang looked at Shanya's somewhat embarrassed look. Luang couldn't help but grinned and was amazed. He thought this guy would always look arrogant, but what he saw in front of him really surprised him. Because Shanya had stolen a lot of delicacies in Loguetown, everyone who ate this meal was both novel and satisfied. It was like a feast, and I wiped out more than a dozen large and small dishes, barely licking the plate. It can be said that mealtime is the most enjoyable time for Luang on this ship. Except for this time, he was basically the first one to arrive at every meal without any surprises. After finishing the meal, Luang also consciously joined in clearing away the dishes. Although he is the captain, Luang has never regarded himself as the boss or treated the crew members like a leader. To him, these people are no longer just crew members, but partners and family members. After cleaning up, Nami suddenly said, by the way, do you know how to play poker? I bought 2 cards when I just came back. Poker, what type? Hearing about poker, Shinolin seemed a little excited. She said a little shyly, I don't know much, so I can upgrade. Nami's eyes lit up. Yes, it's an upgrade, that's what I'm talking about. Shanya nodded. I can. Lu Ang grinned. Isn't this thing very simple? Who can't do it? Hearing that everyone knew how to do it, Nami's little mouth instantly curled up with joy. Since everyone knows it, let's play 2 games. Shanya glanced at Lu Ang and said, it's possible, but I think it would be interesting if I added a little more bets. Nami pouted and said, don't gamble, this is not good. After hearing this, Lu Ang smiled slightly and said, it's okay, I'm just gambling for a while, but. Having said this, Lu Ang paused for a moment, looked at Shanya beside him, and continued, I dare to ask this handsome young man, what do you think? Shanya held his head with both hands, his eyes moved rapidly, and then he said, let's bet on push-ups. The loser will have to do 1,000 push-ups in a row. Lu Ang's eyes widened when he heard this bet. This little calf is quite cruel. If you don't sing, you will already be a blockbuster. He does 1,000 push-ups as soon as he opens his mouth. This appetite is too big, right? Lu Ang glanced at Nami and Shinolin and found that both of them had small mouths that could almost swallow a big duck egg. Obviously, the 2 of them also found this bet a bit scary. Lu Ang, ahem, so what, brother Shanya, I think this is a small bet for pleasure, not life. Can we lower the stakes a little? Seeing the frightened expressions of Nami and others, Yamaga obviously felt that his idea seemed to be a bit too much. He scratched his scalp and said, okay, I forgot that this is not a restaurant on the sea, then. Captain, you make the order. Lu Ang couldn't help but be stunned when he heard that Shanya actually called him captain. This was the first time he heard the word captain uttered from this guy's mouth, and he couldn't help but feel a little happy. Has this kid finally decided that I'm the captain? Lu Ang glanced at Shanya, and then smiled slightly, then changed it to 100 push-ups. This will not only serve as a punishment, but also have an exercise effect. After hearing this, Nami immediately raised her hands happily and voted, I agree. Shinolin also smiled and said, I agree too. Shanya glanced at Lu Ang and said nonchalantly, okay. 1,000 push-ups are as easy as drinking water for Shanya, and 100 push-ups are simply as easy as ever. Soon, everyone was having a happy, chamber competition, on the clean dining table. But at this moment, a rush of footsteps quickly sounded from the deck. Nami and Shinolin looked nervous and quickly stood up and hid aside. Is it possible that pirates are here for a sneak attack? Shanya looked wary. Is it an enemy attack? Lu Ang raised his eyebrows, but his expression was extremely calm. Possessing top-notch domineering power, he instantly felt dozens of auras jumping down from another ship. Obviously, it is impossible for Marine to inspect the ship at this time. Because when he docked at the port, Marine came over immediately to do routine registration. He also paid the parking fee that he should pay. He even paid the parking fee for 10 days. It stands to reason that Marine cannot come to embarrass him. Since it's not Marine, there's obviously only one explanation. Lu Ang raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a devilish smile. Oh, is this a robbery on my head? Although he is not sure whether the other party is a famous pirate, Lu Ang will never be polite to such a guy who comes without warning and has evil intentions. You all stay here, no one moves, I'll go up and take a look. After giving a brief explanation to the 3 of them, Lu Ang walked towards the stairs of the cabin. Bang bang bang. Before reaching the stairs, the big iron door of the cabin was shaken wildly by a violent kick, which was deafening. On the deck, Buggy couldn't help laughing as he watched his men kicking the big iron door of the cabin wildly. Hurry up, hurry up. This ship is so big, and it doesn't have any flags. It must be a rich man from a small family. Tonight we took advantage of the darkness to rob the ship, and then we didn't even notice it. He left quickly and no one knew. When Mochi heard this, he kept applauding Buggy. Hey, the captain is wise, the captain is wise. As a pet lion, Licky also danced applauding with his owner Mochi, which looked very funny. Seeing Mochi like this, the other pirate members also applauded. Captain Buggy is so smart, witty and awesome. Yes, yes, I even thought of this, it's so cool. For daring to do something under Marine's nose, our Captain Buggy is so brave and domineering. Buggy was so flattered by the praise that he kept waving his hands and saying, "Hey, it's nothing, it's nothing. This is just a display of my little wisdom." At this time, the two men in front who were responsible for kicking the iron door suddenly turned around and said, "Captain Buggy, this big iron door is too strong, we can't move it." Buggy looked unhappy. He crossed his arms and immediately yelled, "What, you guys are so useless. You can't even close an iron gate." At this time, Kabaji suddenly walked over with a smile. He held the sword in his hand and said calmly, "Go away, this iron gate is not something that little shrimps like you can handle." At this time, a short pirate member looked excited and said, "Wow, Chief of Staff Kabaji is going to take action. Now I'm going to open my eyes again. It is said that our Chief of Staff's swordsmanship is second only to Hawkeye. He will definitely have no problem taking action. Wow, is this true? Then I'm not too lucky." Seeing the excitement of the newcomer who had just joined the Buggy Pirates, an old bird patted his shoulder. He said earnestly, "Study hard and see how powerful our Chief of Staff is and what a powerful swordsman he is." Buggy also has great trust in the strength of the Chief of Staff. He grinned widely and said proudly, "Hey, if Kabaji takes action, this iron gate will definitely not be able to stop it." Then, in the eyes of countless excitement, Kabaji slowly raised the long knife in his hand. Just when his knife was swung down quickly and was about to hit the iron door, the tightly closed iron door suddenly popped out from inside. Wow, the force of the iron gate's rebound was too strong, too fierce, and too sudden. Kabaji had no time to react. After a scream, he was knocked out by the iron door in an instant. In the blink of an eye, he fell far away from the sky into the sea behind him. Then, a man wearing a black short shirt, denim trousers, and an evil smile appeared in the eyes of all the Buggy Pirates. The moment he saw the man in front of him, Buggy's expression changed. "Wait a minute, why does this person look familiar?" He wiped his eyes frantically several times until Luang walked up to him and grinned and said to him, "Buggy, long time no see." When he heard this voice, Buggy, who was still arrogant a second ago, suddenly trembled. He may not remember other people's voices clearly, but he remembers this voice in his heart, and even feels it is engraved in his bones. Because it was Luang who beat him so hard that he almost died in the sea. You're the one from Orange Town." Buggy's eyes widened and he pointed at Luang with trembling little fingers. After seeing clearly that the man in front of him was Luang, who had almost killed him before, his whole feet felt weak. "Tisk tisk, we are really destined. We haven't seen each other for a long time, and now we meet again." Luang looked at the shivering Buggy with a smile, and then stretched out his right hand towards him. He needs to appreciate this one PIECE's responsibility for the laugh line. Seeing Luang's face and his devilish smile, Buggy was trembling all over. Why is he a demon again? Isn't he in Orange Town? Why is he here in Rogue Town? Also, does this boat actually belong to him? My God, why do you do this to me? Where did I go wrong? I was asked to encounter this devil twice in a row. Woohoo, oh God, if I was guilty, you would have struck me with a thunderbolt instead of sending such a devil to ravage me twice. Like Buggy, Mochi's face turned pale with fright at this time. He was so frightened that he hugged his pet Li Ji. Others don't know clearly, but Mochi knows it very well. It was this man who drove Captain Buggy to the sea in one fell swoop, and almost died in the sea. His power is powerful, unfathomable, and simply incredible. Seeing Luang's hand quickly reaching towards him, Buggy was extremely frightened and sweating crazily all over his body. At the critical moment, he suddenly gritted his teeth, stamped his feet, turned sharply, and ran madly towards his ship. Unfortunately, before he could even take 2 steps, his collar was grabbed by Luang. Looking at this guy whose face turned pale with fright, Luang couldn't help but smile. "Brother, why are you running? We haven't seen each other for so long. If we don't have a good chat, why are we leaving in such a hurry?" Now he is not anxious to kill Buggy, but wants to tease this guy on a whim. After all, he is the punchline in One Piece, and he can just soothe his boredom after dinner. Buggy turned his head and smiled. Hey, no, I remembered that I still have something to deal with." Luang grinned and said, "It's okay, don't worry, let's have a chat first." Buggy. At this moment, Buggy wanted to die. A second ago, I actually thought that I was extremely smart, and that the plan I came up with was perfect and wonderful. Now it seems that this is simply a stupid gate of opening, stupid to the point. Now he just wants to escape by any means possible. As for the idea of robbery, he has no idea at all. Luang, by the way, do you know that there are pirates in the East China Sea with relatively high bounties? Man, I'm a little short of money recently. Buggy. Hearing this, Buggy really wanted to cry. If you want to hand over my uncle to Marine, just do it quickly. I kept holding on to him like this and kept wearing this devilish smile. I was really panicked and scared. It's a pity that Buggy thought so in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it. Because, he still has a little bit of luck in his heart. Maybe, if this old man is in a good mood, he will let himself go. Buggy swallowed his saliva and said, well, Luang, my uncle. Buggy realized that he had said the wrong thing and quickly changed his words. Ahem, no, I know, it's in Kokoja village because the dragon pirates suddenly withdrew and a new wave of pirates came. The name of that pirate group is the Thunderfish Pirates. Luang glanced at Buggy. Oh, is there a bounty? Buggy nodded and said, yes, the Bakuyu Pirates are the new Fishman Pirates, but the bounty of Captain Hobus Thunderfish is 18 million, which is only lower than the evil dragon. A little bit. Quote. Luang's eyes looked strange. Is it the Fishman again? Buggy said, yes, they are also fishmen. It is said that they were originally evil dragon brothers, but they had conflicts with the evil dragon, so they ran away with some of their men alone. It was not until he saw the evil dragon pirates leaving that he took them with him. He led his men to occupy Kokoja village. 18 million, well, it's okay. I also want to take Nami back to my hometown. Luang felt relieved, and then said to Buggy, by the way, I heard that you have a few treasure maps in your hand, right? Buggy. Seeing Luang's meaningful smile, Buggy instantly felt like crying. How come this devil knows everything? He wiped away his tears and said, yes, there is one. Luang. Are you sure there is only one? Buggy. Later, under Luang's polite coercion and inducement, Buggy obediently took out all 3 treasure maps in his hand. In addition, in order to pay for his head fee, he also took out an additional 15 million belly from his pirate ship. After getting cash equivalent to Buggy's bounty, Luang sent Buggy away with a smile. Before leaving, Luang also said to Buggy, brother, we will meet again later, and we will see you again when we are destined. Luang knew that Buggy's sinister character would definitely greet him fiercely in his heart at this moment. But he didn't care. After all, he had obtained 15 million belly. What could be more pleasant than this? Not bad, I can order this kind of takeout more times. Looking at the Bailey cash that had just been counted in his hand, Luang showed a satisfied smile. At the same time, seeing the Buggy pirates leaving in dejection, Nami and the other 3 also walked up from the cabin. Seeing Buggy's pirate ship drifting away in the distance, Shinolin was so angry that his teeth itched. She stamped her feet and groaned, it's these pirates again, it's so abominable. Nami clutched her chest, took a deep breath, and looked shocked. Like the dragon, she is also very afraid of Buggy. Not only is Buggy a pirate, but also because she stole Buggy's treasure map. Buggy came to Orangetown for another important reason besides robbery, which was to get the stolen treasure map back from her. It's a pity that Buggy didn't have a chance to see Nami again until he was killed. Shanya crossed his arms and sneered, oh, I didn't expect these guys to rob us. Everyone on the ship has a deep hatred for pirates. Except for Luang, no one hopes to face pirates every day. Don't look like that. Look, they have contributed such a huge sum of money to us, haven't they? Luang smiled and raised the wooden box in his hand and said to everyone. After seeing the surprised looks of the 3 people, Luang opened the box without saying a word. I saw that there were 15 stacks of Bailey cash inside, each stack containing 100 pieces, which was exactly 15 million. Shinolin's beautiful eyes showed surprise. How come there is so much money? Did you rob it? Nami also covered her mouth, a little surprised. Captain, have you robbed a pirate? Shanya glanced sideways at Luang. You are really good. Ahem, don't be like this. I'm not a bandit, let alone a pirate. How could I do that kind of robbery? Lu Ang glanced at everyone speechlessly, and then said earnestly, "This is a gift." Buggy thought that we were destined to meet again. He didn't prepare any good gifts. After thinking about it, he decided to give me a huge sum of money as a testimony of our friendship. Quote. Shinolin, Nami, Shanya. Almost in unison, these three people all looked at Lu Ang with strange looks. The four characters, "I don't believe," were written very clearly on the three faces. Seeing that none of his partners believed in him, Lu Ang was helpless and finally had to explain the matter. After listening, the three of them not only stopped looking at Lu Ang with strange eyes, but gave a thumbs up. Even Shanya gave a thumbs up and praised, "As expected of you." Lu Ang could feel their admiration from Nami and Shinolin's thumbs up. "What this guy do Shanya says is so awkward. Why does this guy always like to quarrel with me? Could it be that I owed him $1 million in my previous life and haven't paid it back?" Lu Ang pouted, his face full of helplessness. After sending the Buggy Pirates away, the night soon returned to calm. After entering the cabin, with Nami's restart, everyone happily returned to the dining table and continued the poker game that had not just started. I have to say, Nami and Shinolin are really cool. Lu Ang and Shanya were paired together. The two of them were not bad at first, but they were brutally tortured by Nami to the point of crying. Shinolin looks soft and weak, but when it comes to playing cards, he plays harder than anyone else. She sat on the bank all the way to A, and was rock solid, never being tipped off. Nami, on the other hand, perfectly displayed her powerful power as an auxiliary, and beat Lu Ang and Shanya completely without losing their temper. Especially Nami, who looks weird on weekdays, but even more terrifying when playing cards. It was as if he had clairvoyance. His beautiful and charming eyes turned and he understood the cards played by Lu Ang and Shanya. In just a few clicks, all the points that should be squeezed out will be eliminated. Lu Ang and Shanya occasionally managed to get a few points, but they were always a long way from the passing line. After one night, Lu Ang and Shanya lost 3 rounds. The result of losing is naturally 300 push-ups. At this moment, Lu Ang suddenly felt very lucky that he had persuaded Shanya at the beginning. Otherwise these 300 push-ups will become 3,000. Come on, come on, come on, sir, come on Shanya. On the deck, Nami and Shinolin clapped their little hands and kept cheering for Lu Ang. Shanya rolled his eyes at Lu Ang while doing this. Those vivid little eyes vividly interpret what it means to give you a look of contempt. Experience it for yourself. Lu Ang turned back in displeasure. If you lose, you can blame me, and neither can you. In this way, the two people finished 300 push-ups while looking at each other with disgust. After finishing the push-ups, Lu Ang glanced at the three of them and said, "By the way, if you want to continue playing for 2 more days, you'd better get on the boat." Shinolin and Nami looked at each other, and then said with a smile, "It's not easy to get to land once, we must have a few more days to play." Nami nodded, also showing a hint of excitement. Obviously, the two of them haven't had enough shopping yet. After all, Loguetown is much larger than Orangetown. Even if you visit for 2 more days, you may not be able to finish it all. Shanya also nodded slightly and said, "I also want to stay for 2 more days. There are quite a lot of delicious food here. I can just expand my knowledge." Lu Ang nodded and said, "Okay, then we will stay for 3 more days, and we will set off in 3 days." Early the next morning, Lu Ang continued to read alone on the boat after breakfast. This book was bought by Nami before he came back yesterday. It is about various legendary stories and experiences left by some bards of the Great Channel. Although he has already watched One Piece, he still only knows a little bit about some things. With this bard's notebook, he can better understand the various customs and conditions of each place on the Grand Line. Nami and the other two happily left the ship after helping Shanya clean up the dishes. Apparently their desire to shop was not over yet. "I'm going too." After leaving a simple greeting, Shanya jumped off the ship without looking back. In a blink of an eye, Lu Ang was the only one left in the entire ship. But he didn't care, he could just enjoy a moment of tranquility by himself. The morning breeze blew, and waves of refreshing coolness fell on Lu Ang, bringing him a lot of refreshing effects. Lying on the comfortable recliner, Lu Ang slowly turned over the books. Smelling the faint scent of books, he quickly entered the world of the book with full concentration. 3 days was neither long nor short, and it flew by in the blink of an eye. During this period, Luang saw Nami and Shinolan going back and forth several times. Every time I go, I carry large and small bags of clothing and various cosmetics in my hands. It wasn't until Nami sighed and said there wasn't enough room that she stopped running out. And Shanya is no different from the two of them. Every time he comes back, he will have a lot of ingredients in his hands. All kinds of fresh vegetables and fruits, all kinds of big fish and meat, and game specialties are constantly being brought to the boat. It can be said that Shanya is the only one among the three who has done something serious. Of course, all this money was given by Luang. Not only did he give Nami and the two of them a full pocket money of 200,000 belly, he also gave Shanya a full 500,000 belly. After deducting the purchase money, at least hundreds of thousands of baileys are left. This money is reserved for Shanya to eat, drink and play by himself. But Shanya seemed to be only interested in delicacies. After buying a lot of delicacies, he stuffed a total of 120,000 baileys back into Luang's hand. Luang, no, this money is for you to eat, drink and have fun. You don't have to pay me back. Shanya, I'm not interested in those. After saying these words coldly, Shanya began to return to the cabin and get busy. It seems that in the eyes of this little guy, there is nothing that makes him more excited and cares more about than making delicious food. Luang was also very helpless about this. Does this little guy really have a childhood? Or is it that his childhood was all about cooking? Luang shook his head, speechless. But since Shanya likes to cook, he can only let him. As a captain, the only thing you can do is to meet the crew's other needs as much as possible on the basis of doing their jobs well. Whether it's in life or spiritually. While Shanya was busy working, Nami and Shinolan also came to Luang with 3 or 5 sets of clothes with excited faces. Luang couldn't help but be stunned for a while looking at the clothes that were obviously of extraordinary quality and exquisite workmanship. Shinolan smiled and said, "Don't be stunned. Go and change quickly. Your pants and clothes are all yellow after washing." Nami said, Yes, you are our captain, how can you wear something so simple and casual? Go and change it quickly." Just like that, with his face speechless, Luang was forcefully pushed into the bedroom by 2 beauties. After wandering around in Loguetown for a few days, everyone had a great time and soon returned to the sea to continue their unfinished journey. On the deck, Luang was still lying on his deck chair, reading books with a comfortable expression on his face. At this time, he had already thrown away the old and worn-out clothes and put on the casual robe carefully selected for him by Nami and Shinolan. This is an extremely slim and elegant black robe. When worn on the body, paired with a similarly black beret, the whole person looks particularly cool and trendy. Luang has at least 10 sets of such trendy clothes in his bedroom. For Luang, who was dressed in a very Buddhist style, it was naturally impossible for him to buy these things himself. There are a total of 12 sets of clothes, all of which were personally selected by Shinolan and Nami, one by one. I have to say that these 2 beauties have extremely good aesthetic vision. Putting on the robe, Luang looked like a low-key, luxurious and noble nobleman. Paired with the coffee beside him and the matching leather boots of the same style, he suddenly looks very stylish. Even when reading a book, it will give people a very emotional and connotative feeling. Of course, this doesn't feel at all to Luang, who has a Buddhist mentality. In order to learn swordsmanship as soon as possible, Nami and Shinolan continued a new round of special training activities. The 2 of them don't need anyone's supervision at all now. As soon as they finish breakfast and warm-up exercise, they will consciously enter into special training. Shanya will also allow himself to carry out weight-bearing training in a timely manner according to time arrangements. Because he is responsible for the food and drink of a whole ship, Shanya is relatively busy and has less time for special training. Even so, his average daily special training time can reach at least 6 hours. Even with such a relatively short-term intensity of special training, his growth rate is still not weaker than that of Nami. He has always insisted on the progress of Shinolan's strength growth, and his efficiency has not dropped at all. The distance from Loguetown to Kokoja village is not short, and it took Luang and the 4 of them more than half a month to arrive. In the past half month, Shinolan had kicked his strength to 550 pounds, and Shanya's increase was also at the same level. Logically speaking, it is already extremely amazing when it reaches this level. But the progress speed of the two people did not slow down at all, which surprised Luang extremely. He couldn't understand why these two people seemed to have no bottlenecks and could continue to grow. At the same time, Nami also reached 250 pounds. Nami's progress is not inferior to that of Shinolan and Shanya, and she is always working hard with full energy. Being able to reach this point is obviously closely related to her character of never admitting defeat. Wrong. Luang suddenly felt something was wrong, because no matter how hard a normal person trained, it would be impossible for him to make such rapid progress in a short period of time. 550 pounds of strength, that's almost 5 times the strength of an adult man. If it weren't for creatures like Fishman who are born with strange powers, or if they had gone through years of training, ordinary people wouldn't be able to reach this level easily. In other words, the progress of the three of them is beyond the ordinary. Correct. At this moment, Luang suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but look at Shanya, who was also training hard with a serious look on his face. He remembered that Shanya seemed to be not only a chef, but also a super nutritionist with a grandmaster nutritional formula. Could it be that through the effects of dietary therapy, the special training of the three of them achieved twice the result with half the effort? Although this possibility does not seem high, at present, it seems that this is the only way to explain it. After Shanya's special training was over, Luang stopped him as he was about to cook without saying a word. Luang said, "The strength of the three of you has increased so fast. It must have something to do with the food you prepared, right?" Shanya frowned slightly. "Are you doubting me?" Seeing Shanya's frowning expression, Luang suddenly realized that he seemed to have expressed the wrong meaning. He quickly waved his hand and said, No, I don't suspect that you have done anything, but I want to know whether the three of you can make such obvious progress because you have put more effort into the ingredients. Through the ingredients' nutritional combination to maximize the training effect." Shanya's expression softened for the most part. He nodded and said, "Of course, training is also very important, but if you don't get timely nutritional supplements, it's impossible to increase your strength. Therefore, I try my best to do my best wherever I go. Go collect all the ingredients necessary to increase your strength." After hearing this, Luang suddenly realized. It was just as he expected. It seems that this nutritional combination is also very knowledgeable. At this time, Luang's expression changed, and he suddenly became in awe of Shanya. Obviously, as a chef in Shanya, he has reached an extremely advanced level as a chef. This can only be achieved by knowing the characteristics of various ingredients and having a clear mind of the effects of various combinations. That's awesome. If I could have Shanya's control over various ingredients, wouldn't it be great to just open a gym? Luang couldn't help but fantasize in his mind. Is that Kokoja village? At this moment, Shanya, who was about to return to the cabin to prepare meals, suddenly spoke. Reached. When Nami, who was undergoing special training, heard this sentence, she was instantly excited. She immediately dropped the equipment in her hands and ran towards the bow of the ship. In her surprised autumn eyes, a familiar small village gradually became clear. Looking at the familiar green water and green mountains, the familiar house, the familiar village entrance, and the familiar roads, Nami's eyes turned red. This is my hometown, the beautiful hometown where I was born and raised. I am finally back. She covered her red lips, holding back the tearful surprise, and kept waving towards the village. The meaning is obvious, that is Kokoja village, Nami, am back. Seeing this scene, the corners of Luang's mouth also raised slightly. This guy has really been thinking about his hometown for a long time. Wait, that's... At this moment, Luang suddenly noticed several pirate ships approaching quickly from not far away. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but scream secretly. I forgot that Buggy guy told me before that this place has been reoccupied by a guy named Thunderfish Pirates. Seeing Nami's side face that was almost crying due to excitement, Luang couldn't help but look a little embarrassed. Nami, who was excited to return to her hometown, soon noticed something was wrong. Hey, Captain, why are those ships approaching? After hearing Nami's words, Shanya and Shinolan also walked over quickly. Shanya looked solemn. If I read it correctly, it should be a pirate ship. Hearing the word, pirate ship, the expressions of Shinolin and Nami changed slightly. Both of them were victims of pirates, especially Shinolin, whose entire family was massacred by pirates. Seeing the pirates coming, Shinolin couldn't help but clenched his pink fists, wishing he could rush forward and kill him. How come? Nami covered her mouth and suddenly thought of something. What about Kokoja village? They won't attack the village, right? I want to go back. I want to go back right away. Nami was so worried that she immediately patted the bow of the boat and kept yelling. Seeing Nami looking anxious and about to cry, Luang felt bad all over. He immediately consoled him. Okay, we'll go back right away, we'll go back right away. While comforting him, Luang's eyes gradually became filled with a hint of chill. However, before we go back, we have to take good care of these guys in front of us. Because the distance was not too far, and with all-out efforts, 3 large pirate ships quickly approached Luang's ship. On the pirate ship, hundreds of murlocs holding various swords showed excitement and kept waving the weapons in their hands. The leader is a fishman holding a giant mace who looks a lot like a dragon. He was standing on a boat in the middle, his feet in slippers on the bow of the boat, and his colorful shirt fluttering in the wind. Hey, kids, business is coming to our door. Let's go and meet him. The thunderfish had a ferocious look on its face, looking at the rapidly approaching prey with an evil smile, and the mace in its hand actually had a scurrying thread of lightning. Obviously, he is a member of the Fishman tribe that has its own thunder and lightning lineage. When the pirate ships from both sides approached, Luang and everyone finally saw clearly who the incoming pirates were. Nami covered her mouth and said in shock, "The Fishman, it's the Fishman." Shinolin also looked nervous. He never expected that after the dragon pirate ship was killed, there would be another group of Fishman pirates. Shanya spat. "Tisk, are you making a comeback?" Seeing the pirate ship approaching immediately, Luang jumped on the bow without saying a word. He said to Shanya without looking back, "Shanya, pull Nami and Nami back to the cabin, I'm going to have a big fight." No, although he also wanted to join, Shanya knew that the safety of Nami and Shinoran was obviously more important than a happy fight. Without saying a word, he pulled Nami and they quickly walked to the cabin. "Nami, no, I want to see these devils beaten down in person, let me go." Shinolin gritted his teeth, struggled for a while, and said, "Yes, Shanya, I don't want to be a coward every time. Even if I can't beat him, I have to stand aside and see with my own eyes how these demons are beaten by Mr. Earthly." Shanya, he really wants to say, "It's not that I won't let you watch, the main reason is that you are too weak, and you are in danger even if you are a member of the public." Luang naturally heard what Nami and the two said. He sighed, turned his back to everyone and said, "Okay, then you should stay far away. If you are in danger, get into the cabin immediately." "I understand." "Clear." Nami and Shinolin nodded obediently and responded in unison. Luang glanced at Shanya. "Shanya, you should always pay attention. If there is a fish that slips through the net and rushes over, you will have to kill me." Shanya turned his ankle and said casually, "I know." Although Shanya is a little kid, his fighting power is no less than that of any ordinary fishman, which Luang is quite relieved about. While everyone was talking, 3 large pirate ships docked at Luang one after another. "Young children, all of you go down and enjoy the joy of robbery, ha ha ha." Accompanied by the laughter of the leader Hobus Thunderfish, hundreds of fishmen shouted in excitement, jumped off their pirate ships, and jumped onto Luang's ship. In the blink of an eye, no less than 300 fishmen landed on Luang's boat, and they continued to approach them with malicious intentions. In this regard, Luang always looked calm, looking at the burly mountain-like thunderfish in front of him with a calm expression. He said calmly, "Why don't you come down?" Hobus Thunderfish. Hearing Luang's call and looking at his calm demeanor, Leu couldn't help but be slightly startled. Why does this guy seem to know me? Moreover, the strangest thing is that he is the one who was robbed. Shouldn't he feel scared at this moment? Why is this guy so calm and calm? Thunderfish's heart skipped a beat, and for some reason he suddenly had a bad premonition. But he looked at Luang carefully, from left to right, from top to bottom, from inside to outside, and found nothing strange. Not strong, not fat, not even armed. The whole person looks like an ordinary civilian weakling. What kind of threat can such a guy bring to himself? Impossible, I must be short-circuiting my brain and thinking wildly. Thunderfish gritted his teeth and jumped off the boat without saying a word. With a loud bang, the whole person fell directly on Luang's deck like a hill. After landing, Thunderfish slowly raised his head and looked at Luang with a ferocious smile. Hey, you are quite bold. I have robbed countless villages and killed countless men, women and children. You are the first human weakling to see that Lousy is not only not afraid, but also confident and calm. In order to appreciate your courage, I will leave you with a whole body. Luang crossed his arms and looked at Lei Yu with an indifferent expression. Are you done talking nonsense? What? Thunderfish's eyes showed displeasure, and he was about to say something, but unexpectedly, an extremely domineering wave of energy suddenly swept out from the man in front of him. The next second, all the fishmen's eyes turned white and they fell down one after another. In the blink of an eye, all 300 fishmen were lying on Luang's boat. This is. Looking at the thunderfish that collapsed in an instant, without even a standing murloc companion, the whole person was stunned. His mouth was dry and he was shivering uncontrollably. After scanning around, he confirmed that none of his companions were still awake. Thunderfish tremblingly stretched out his right hand, pointed at Luang and said, You know how to be domineering. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.